Some objects from the past still hold mysteries that baffle and amaze us. Ancient artifacts, some small and delicate, others crafted of gold and bronze, carry the lives, rituals, and stories of people long gone. These are not myths or legends. They are real remnants, preserved across millennia, waiting to whisper their mysteries to us. Tonight, we will journey through these treasures, from cycladic figurines to resin hair gel and golden belt discs, uncovering the hidden stories of human life, creativity, and belief. So relax, let your mind drift through time, and discover the quiet magic of the ancient world. The Clonmacnoise Crozier Fragment. The Clonmacnoise Crozier Fragment is, at first glance, an unassuming piece of ancient metalwork. If you saw it in the soil, you might mistake it for a bent piece of bronze left behind by some farmer centuries ago. But this fragment, this small curled remnant of a staff, carries with it the weight of a forgotten story, the memory of hands that once held it, and the echo of a community that prayed around it. It belonged to a crozier, a bishop's staff, a symbol of authority, of faith, of guidance. To understand why this fragment matters, we must first drift back slowly into the world that once surrounded it, the monastery of Clonmacnoise, on the banks of the River Shannon in Ireland. Picture it with me now. The monastery in its prime, long before the fragment was broken, long before the silence of the ruins. The air would have been alive with the sound of chanting monks, their voices carrying on the cool river breeze. Candles flickered inside small stone chapels, their smoke curling lazily upward into vaulted ceilings. The River Shannon flowed steadily nearby, the heartbeat of the land, feeding fields and carrying travelers, merchants and pilgrims to the monastery's doors. And at the center of it all, a bishop or abbot walked with his crozier, a staff not just for walking, but for leading, for blessing, for declaring presence. The crozier's curve gleamed in firelight, a spiral of bronze that symbolized eternity itself. Now imagine that same staff, centuries later, broken, the wood rotted, the shaft gone, the shining bronze darkened and corroded, leaving only a fragment that speaks louder than a whole staff ever could. Because fragments are mysterious, they make us ask questions. How was it broken? Was it snapped by accident? Did a monk trip and stumble, sending the staff crashing to the ground, breaking into pieces that were quietly tucked away? Or was it more violent? Was the monastery attacked, the crozier torn from sacred hands during the chaos of a raid, shattered in anger or triumph? Or perhaps, and here is the most curious idea, perhaps the crozier was broken deliberately, a ritual act at the death of the abbot, as if saying, his staff, his authority, his life, are all at rest now. We cannot know. And that is what keeps the fragment alive in the imagination. When I picture the fragment, I don't see just bronze, I see the countless hands that may have polished it, the moments of quiet prayer when the crozier was lifted, the solemn processions where it led the way. The fragment, bent into its spiral, feels almost alive, like it wants to curl around your imagination, pulling you in deeper, whispering, I was here, I mattered, I still matter. What makes this so haunting is not its grandeur, but its smallness. It isn't Tutankhamun's mask, gleaming in gold. It isn't a towering stone pyramid. It's a piece of broken bronze, simple and quiet. And yet, in its quietness, it holds a kind of power, because fragments are all we really have of the past. Rarely does history hand us something whole. More often, it gives us scraps, hints, whispers. And yet somehow, those scraps are enough to rebuild entire worlds in our minds. Think of it this way. When you hear just a single note of music, your mind can sometimes recall the whole song. When you hold a single fragment of pottery, you can imagine the whole vase. And with this crozier fragment we can, if we let ourselves, imagine the whole monastery of Clonmacnoise, alive with light, sound, and human life. Now let's pause for a moment and consider the strangeness of time. The bishop who carried this crozier lived centuries ago. He may have walked across the fields on a cold morning, leaning on the staff, his breath clouding the air. He may have raised it to bless his people, or rested it gently against an altar as prayers echoed. Did he ever imagine that one day, hundreds of years later, people on the other side of the world would whisper about a broken fragment of his staff? Did he imagine that storytellers would linger on it, turning it over in their minds as a mystery of history? Most likely not. Most likely, he thought only of the moment, of keeping order, guiding prayer, tending to the needs of his monastery. And yet, here we are, the fragment outlasted him, outlasted his monastery, outlasted even the reasons it was broken. And now, as you listen, let your mind wander over that thought. Objects outlast us. They survive where memory fails. They wait silently until someone rediscovers them, brushes away the soil, and begins to wonder all over again. The fragment itself is modest, bronze, green with patina, curved into a spiral. Nothing about it screams treasure, and yet scholars study it with care, as though it might still whisper some truth about the lives of the people who once walked the monastery's stone paths. Some say the spiral was not just decoration, but a symbol. Spirals appear everywhere in Celtic art, symbols of eternity, of cycles, of life moving endlessly forward and backward. Perhaps the crozier's spiral was a way of connecting the church's faith with the ancient symbols of the land. Perhaps it was a way of saying, even as time turns, as seasons pass, as abbots die, the faith remains unbroken. And yet, the crozier did break. Or maybe it wasn't broken at all. Maybe it was hidden. Maybe someone, fearing the monastery would be plundered, took the staff apart and buried its pieces. Maybe they hoped to return and restore it, but never did. That too is the kind of thought that lingers late at night. There's also a certain humility in the crozier's material. Bronze, not gold. Sturdy, not extravagant. It speaks of a community that valued strength and endurance over glittering wealth. And in a way, that's why we still have the fragment today. Bronze lasts. Gold might have been stolen, melted down, repurposed, but bronze was forgotten, left to sleep under the earth, until rediscovered. The monastery of Clonmacnoise itself is now ruins. Its chapels are roofless, its stone cross is weathered by centuries of wind and rain, yet the fragment remains. Isn't that poetic? A broken crozier survives, while the buildings it once blessed crumble. The fragment may be small, but it has endured. And in that endurance, it teaches us something, that the past is not whole, but it does not need to be whole. Fragments are enough. The human mind will always fill in the gaps, weave the missing pieces, and imagine the rest. As you drift with this thought, picture yourself walking through the ruins of Clonmacnoise today. The wind is cool, carrying the scent of grass and river water. The stones are gray, worn smooth by countless footsteps long before yours. And in your hand, imagine holding the crozier fragment. Feel its curve, its weight. It is cold, but not lifeless. It is silent, but not empty. Through it, you feel the echo of monks' prayers, of abbots' authority, of centuries of time pressing against the present moment. And slowly, as your breathing deepens, you realize that the fragment is more than an artifact. It is a reminder that history is always incomplete, and yet always enough, that we are all fragments too, carrying parts of stories, passing them on. So let the fragment curl around your thoughts like the spiral it once formed. Let it remind you that nothing is truly lost, not completely, that even in brokenness there is meaning, that even in silence there is story. And as you let that thought linger, the fragment of bronze rests quietly, as it always has, as it always will, waiting, whispering, surviving. The Orkney Venus figurine. The Orkney Venus figurine is small, so small that you could hold it between your thumb and forefinger without strain. And yet this tiny piece of carved stone carries with it a weight of mystery so large that it feels almost impossible to measure. When it was unearthed in Orkney, in the far north of Scotland, it immediately raised more questions than it answered. What is it? Who carved it? What did it mean to the hands that shaped it, and to the eyes that once looked upon it? The figurine itself is crude in form, not crude in the sense of careless, but crude in its simplicity. A head is suggested, but not detailed. A body is implied, but not shaped with the precision we might expect of a sculptor. And yet in those simple lines, in those deliberate cuts, there is a humanity that hums beneath the surface. This little figure, sometimes called the earliest known depiction of a human in Scotland, feels less like a piece of stone and more like a mirror that reflects not the face of its carver, but the presence of their world, their community, their hopes, and their beliefs. When you picture Orkney today, you see rugged coastlines, gray seas stretching into distance, waves battering cliffs of stone, seabirds wheeling overhead. The land is windswept, treeless, ancient. Now imagine it thousands of years ago, when this figurine was carved. The sea was still there, the wind still howling across open land, but the people who lived there saw the world through very different eyes. Their lives were ruled by cycles of nature, by the turning of seasons, by the mysteries of birth, death, and survival. And in that world, someone took a piece of stone and carved into it the image of a figure, perhaps a woman, perhaps a goddess, perhaps something else entirely. What does it mean to carve a human form? Think about it for a moment. Animals are hunted, their shapes remembered, landscapes are walked, their lines familiar, but to carve a human being, that is different. It is to look at yourself, to look at your community, and to say, we matter, we exist, we belong to this world too. The Orkney Venus figurine, in all its simplicity, may have been one of the first times in that land that people tried to give themselves permanence through art, a kind of whispered statement into the stone, we are here, do not forget us. The name Venus is of course a modern invention. Archaeologists often give this label to ancient female figures, linking them to fertility, life, and the power of creation. But did the people of Orkney see it that way? Did they see her as a mother, a goddess, or simply as a symbol of their community? That is where the curiosity deepens. Imagine the carver, a person sitting by a fire, stone in hand, tool in the other. chips of stone falling away as they worked slowly, deliberately. The firelight flickering against the surface as the shape emerged. Perhaps others sat nearby, watching, whispering. Perhaps this carving was not an idle act, but a ritual, a shared moment of significance. Every line, every curve carried meaning, and when it was finished, the figurine was not just an object, it was something more, something charged, something alive with intention. But then, the centuries turned, the carver died, their family passed, their community vanished into the long stretch of history. The figurine was lost, buried, forgotten. For thousands of years, it slept beneath the earth, and only recently was it awakened again, lifted by archaeologists who brushed the soil away and realized they were holding something astonishing, the oldest human depiction in Scotland. How strange is that, a small object, no bigger than a hand, crossing the gulf of millennia. A voice from the past, carried forward without words, only through stone. And it arrives in our time not whole, not detailed, not certain, but fragmentary, ambiguous, puzzling, and yet it stirs something deep. Perhaps the most haunting thought is this: we do not know if it was meant to be seen by many or kept by one. Was it an amulet, carried by someone for protection? Was it an idol, set on a stone shelf within a house, guarding the hearth? Or was it hidden, buried intentionally, part of a ritual we can no longer imagine? Each possibility opens a door, and none of those doors fully close. And here is where the Orkney Venus figurine becomes more than just archaeology. It becomes a riddle for the imagination. It makes us wonder about ourselves, because we too carve images. We make statues, paintings, digital photographs. We capture our own likenesses endlessly. But will any of them last thousands of years? Will anyone, long after we are gone, pick up a fragment of what we leave behind and wonder, who were these people? What did they believe? What did this small, humble object mean to them? The figurine itself, with its roundness, its lack of detail, suggests universality. It is not one person, it is every person. It is humanity reduced to its most essential shape. It reminds us that sometimes, simplicity is the deepest form of truth. As you let that thought linger, imagine yourself in Orkney, walking among the ancient stone circles and windswept ruins. The sky is gray, the air cool. You crouch down and pick up a small figurine from the soil. It is rough against your palm, yet strangely comforting. You can feel the grooves left by the carver's hand, and suddenly, you are connected, not just to the object, but to the person who made it, thousands of years ago. Across time, across silence, across the endless turning of the earth, you are holding their thought, their intent, their presence. And in that moment, the figurine becomes not just an artifact, but a bridge between past and present, between the living and the long gone, between the known and the unknowable. So the Orkney Venus figurine sits quietly in a museum today, encased in glass, watched by curious eyes. But in truth, it does not belong to the museum. It belongs to time itself, to the people who carved it, and to all who wonder at it. It belongs to the silence of the soil, and to the whispers of imagination that rise whenever we think of it. It is small, humble, and incomplete, and yet, in its simplicity, it contains a universe of mystery. The Jersey hoard torque rings. Beneath the soil of Jersey, one of the Channel Islands, lying quietly in the waters between Britain and France, there was once a secret hidden for 2,000 years. A secret made of twisted gold. A secret shaped by hands that believed metal was not just wealth but magic. A secret that waited patiently, while empires rose and fell, while languages changed, while centuries of footsteps passed overhead. And then, one day in 2012, that secret returned to the light. It was called the Jersey Hoard, one of the largest collections of Celtic coins and ornaments ever found in Europe. Buried together in a massive block of soil, weighing nearly 3/4 of a ton, it contained not just coins but treasures. Among them were delicate, gleaming shapes, the torque rings. A torque is not just jewelry, it is a statement, a band of gold or bronze or silver, twisted into a loop, worn around the neck or wrist. To the Celtic people it was more than decoration, it was identity, power, status. A torque could mark a warrior, a chief, a druid. It could carry the weight of the sun in its golden twist, or the curl of lightning in its spiral. And here, buried deep in Jersey's earth, dozens of them slept together, bound by silence, untouched by human hands for millennia. Now imagine this. The year is perhaps the 1st century BC. The Romans are expanding, pushing into Gaul, into Britain, into the lands of the Celts. The island of Jersey, a safe harbor between worlds, becomes a place of refuge. And in that time, a community gathers its wealth, thousands upon thousands of coins, and their sacred ornaments, and hides them in the ground. Why? To keep them safe from Rome's advance? To guard them for a future that never came? Or was the act itself part of a ritual, a great offering to the gods, a payment to the earth, a gift that must never be reclaimed? The torque rings are curious in design. Some are simple, smooth bands of gold, shining with quiet elegance. Others are elaborate, their surfaces twisted, their ends flared into terminals like blooming flowers of metal. They speak of skill, they speak of artistry, but they also speak of something deeper. Because to twist metal into a torque is to harness both strength and beauty. It is to take something rigid, something unyielding, and give it a curve, a rhythm, a softness. It is to transform nature into culture, raw earth into human meaning. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the discovery. Archaeologists and metal detectorists brushing away the soil, slowly realizing they are not just uncovering coins, but something greater. The golden arcs of torque rings emerging, curved shapes glinting against dark earth. Each piece a whisper from the Iron Age, each twist a fingerprint of someone long gone. And then the questions. Who wore these torques? Were they warriors, standing tall in battle, sunlight catching the gold around their throats? Were they priests, raising arms in ceremony, the torque glimmering as they invoked gods whose names we have forgotten? Or were they symbols of entire tribes, treasures that belonged not to one person, but to a people? What we do know is this. Torques appear again and again in Celtic art, in sculpture, in myth. They were not mere ornaments, they were power embodied. Some scholars believe they symbolize the endless cycle, no beginning, no end, only continuity. Others think they were protective, guarding the wearer with sacred energy, and still others see them as declarations of wealth, a portable treasury, worn proudly on the body. The Jersey hoard, with its torque rings, captures that entire mystery in a single find. For inside that mass of soil, the past was frozen. Coins, rings, chains, ornaments, all pressed together by time, bound in earth's embrace. And when the hoard was lifted out, intact, it was as if an ancient treasure chest had finally opened, not with a key but with patience. But the deeper question remains, why bury them? If these torques were treasures, why hide them underground, never to be worn again? Perhaps it was fear, perhaps it was hope, perhaps it was devotion. There is a haunting thought that they were buried for safety, and that the people who buried them never came back, that something stopped them. War, death, displacement, and so the earth became the keeper of their wealth. And now, thousands of years later, we, the strangers, peer at them through glass cases in museums. We trace the twisted shapes with our eyes. We marvel at the weight of their gold, but we cannot hear their voices. The meaning of the torque remains half buried still, not in soil, but in silence. And isn't that the beauty of it? That something so small, so delicate, so human, can carry such enormous questions? That a ring of twisted gold can hold within it the stories of people we will never meet. The Jersey torque rings remind us that wealth is not always measured in numbers. It is measured in meaning, in memory, in mystery. And when you see one, glowing softly in museum light, you are not just looking at jewelry. You are looking at the echo of a people who believed in more than survival. They believed in beauty. They believed in ritual. They believed in leaving something behind, even if no one would understand it. The net hut wooden paddles. Beneath the shifting sands and soft tides of the English coast, archaeologists uncovered something almost fragile, almost impossible. Fragments of paddles, carved from wood, lying buried for thousands of years. They were found near a prehistoric net hut, a place where ancient people may have worked with ropes, with nets, with tools of water and survival. And among the remains were these paddles, shaped by human hands that lived not in our time, not in recorded history, but in an age when the world was quieter, slower, harsher. The paddles are simple, yes. They are not made of gold or stone or jewels. They are carved from wood, and yet, that is what makes them extraordinary. Because wood is fragile, wood decays, wood rarely survives the long march of centuries, and yet these paddles endured, locked away in wet soil, in an oxygen-poor environment that preserved their form like time capsules of daily life. Imagine them in use, a man, or perhaps a woman, standing at the edge of a tidal creek, pushing a small boat through shallow waters. The paddle slices the surface, ripples spread, silver in the dawnlight, nets trail behind, heavy with the promise of fish. The paddle is not just a tool, it is a bridge between human and water, between survival and hunger. And now, thousands of years later, that same paddle lies quiet, its wood darkened, its surface scarred, its edges worn. When archaeologists uncovered it, they were not just holding an object, they were holding a gesture, the gesture of rowing, the gesture of guiding, the gesture of moving forward through the uncertainty of water. The net hut paddles remind us that history is not only kings and battles and monuments. History is also the hand that carves wood in the firelight, the hand that pushes against the current, the hand that chooses to endure. When you think about these paddles, you can almost hear the sound, the soft splash of wood striking water, again and again, a rhythm older than writing, a rhythm that once lulled children to sleep in the bottoms of boats, a rhythm that once carried families, fish, tools, firewood, hope. But here is the mystery. Why were they left behind? Why did the paddles sink into the earth, lost to time? Was it an accident? A storm that broke the hut, scattering nets and tools? Or was it abandonment? A people leaving their shore behind, walking inland, never to return? Or perhaps, and this thought lingers, they were deliberately left, buried as offerings, gifts to the waters that had given so much. Archaeologists can study the shape, the wood, the marks of carving. They can say this paddle belonged to a boat, or that it matched a certain technique. But what they cannot recover is the story, the heartbeat of the person who made it, the voice of the fisherman who used it, the quiet prayer whispered to the water before pushing off into the tide. And yet, when you hold your mind steady on these paddles, when you picture them, you begin to feel their weight, not the physical weight, but the emotional weight. Because these were not meant to last, they were not made for eternity, and still, against all odds, they have survived. It makes you wonder, how many other paddles, how many other tools, how many other wooden lives have disappeared forever? How many gestures of survival have been erased? And why, of all of them, did these remain? Perhaps the paddles are trying to tell us something. Perhaps they are reminders that the everyday can become eternal, that the smallest acts, paddling, rowing, working with nets, matter just as much as the grand stories of emperors. Close your eyes and imagine again, the hut, built of wood and reeds, standing at the edge of water, nets hanging like shadows, drying in the air, a family gathered around, repairing, laughing, surviving, and beside them, the paddles, waiting for the next journey, waiting for the tide, waiting for a hand that will never return. And now they rest in a museum, behind glass, still, silent, removed from the waves they once knew. People walk past them, glancing, moving on. But if you linger, if you let your mind drift, you can almost feel the water pulling at your thoughts. You can almost feel the rhythm of rowing. The net hut wooden paddles are not grand, they are not dazzling, but in their simplicity lies their power. They are echoes of a life that was never written down, a life of tides and nets and survival, a life that feels strangely close, even across thousands of years. The Clonycavan Man belt buckle. Beneath the peat bogs of Denmark, time has a strange way of holding on to things. It does not preserve everything equally. Bones crumble, fabrics dissolve, wood rots away. But sometimes, by a peculiar gift of chemistry and silence, the bog wraps its arms around what it touches, keeping it close for thousands of years. And in this dark embrace, the Clonycavan Man was found. A man from the Iron Age, his body astonishingly preserved, his face calm, as if asleep. He wore a simple cap, a belt. And tied to that belt was a small buckle, a modest object, easy to overlook, but filled with questions. It was not made of gold, not of silver. It was crafted of bronze or iron, practical, ordinary, nothing that would catch the eye of a treasure hunter. And yet, when seen beside him, it carries a weight far greater than its size. The buckle was not simply a fastener, it was a marker of identity. It held his clothing in place. It might have symbolized his role, his standing, his daily life. And there it was, still clasped at his waist, still doing its job after 2 millennia, still connecting us to the very moment this man took his last breath. When archaeologists uncovered the Clonycavan Man, they marveled at his lifelike features, the stubble on his chin, the wrinkles of his closed eyes. But the buckle, resting quietly on his belt, whispered of something different, not the drama of death, but the persistence of life. This was the object he carried every day, an object that knew his movements, his labor, his routines. Imagine the countless times he must have touched it, fastening it in the morning, loosening it at night, each motion the same, a rhythm of days, repeated and forgotten. And now, that rhythm has outlasted him. The gesture survives in the metal clasp, even when the hand that made it is gone. The mystery deepens when we ask, who was this man? Was he a farmer, walking the marshy edges of the bog, pulling at peat and roots? Was he a craftsman, shaping iron, weaving, tending animals? Or was he something else entirely, a chosen figure, offered to the gods in ritual sacrifice? The bog bodies of Europe are often thought to be sacrifices, people placed into the wetlands as gifts to unseen powers. If that is true, then the belt and buckle were not forgotten, they were chosen to remain. Perhaps they were left on him deliberately, as part of the ritual. Perhaps they meant something in the language of symbols we no longer speak. The buckle might seem small, but objects like these are often the key to understanding. It is not just a clasp of metal, it is a link between the living and the dead. It tells us about technology, about the ability to cast and shape bronze, to forge iron, to bend the raw earth into something useful. It tells us about design, how even the simplest tool carried meaning. And it tells us, quietly, about time, because the bog is not eternal. It is slow, but it changes. And yet, for 2,000 years, the buckle endured. What are the odds that this one object, this one life, would survive when so many others did not? The Clonycavan Man's buckle is not covered in jewels. It is not the treasure of a king, but perhaps that is why it fascinates us. It is the treasure of an ordinary life, a reminder that history is not only written in palaces and pyramids, it is also written in the smallest details, in the objects a person once touched every single day. Imagine him fastening it one last time, the day of his death, the belt drawn tight, the clasp clicked into place. Did he know what was coming? Did he walk willingly into the bog, or was he led there? And when his body sank beneath the wet earth, did anyone notice the buckle glint, just for a moment, before the peat swallowed it whole? The bog does not give away its secrets easily. It holds them deep and patient, and so the buckle lay hidden, silent, while empires rose and fell, while languages were born and died, while centuries passed above it, until one day it came back into the light, still fastened, still waiting. We cannot ask the Clonycavan Man what it meant to him. We cannot hear his voice or his story. But we can see the buckle, and in that small, humble piece of metal, we glimpse a life once lived, a life that was not meant to be remembered, and yet somehow, against all odds, was preserved. The Clonycavan Man belt buckle is not loud, it does not demand attention, it whispers, and in its whisper lies the mystery of human time, the idea that even the smallest objects can carry the weight of memory across thousands of years. The Caros Hoard. Cycladic figurines. Beneath the sun-baked islands of the Cyclades, time moves differently, not like the ticking of a clock, but like the slow shaping of stone and marble, like waves carving sand, like wind smoothing the cliffs. It is here, across scattered islands, that we find traces of a civilization long vanished, yet whose whispers survive in the Caros Hoard. The Caros Hoard is not a single artifact, but a collection, hundreds of marble figurines, carefully carved, left behind for reasons we can only guess. Some were small, just a few inches tall, others stood nearly 2 feet, their forms abstract, their presence quiet but undeniable. When you look at one, you notice first the simplicity. A human figure, arms folded across its chest, head tilted slightly, face smooth, almost featureless. And yet, in that simplicity, there is depth, a depth that pulls you closer, that invites you to imagine the life, the rituals, the people who made them. The islands themselves seem to hold the memory of the people who lived here. Sunlight glances off the sea, dancing across stones that have been walked upon for thousands of years. The air is salty, carrying hints of herbs that still grow wild on the cliffs. Imagine walking along a narrow path, small waves lapping at the shore, the wind brushing across your skin, and suddenly discovering a small fragment of marble, worn smooth by the ages, a quiet relic of human hands long gone. This is what the Caros Hoard represents. It is a bridge across time, a whisper from a world we can barely comprehend. These figurines were buried in fragments on the tiny island of Caros. Archaeologists suggest that this was not random. They were deposited deliberately, perhaps as offerings, or as part of a ceremonial ritual, a message to unseen powers, or a farewell to the material world. Each figure is carved from marble, the stone polished until it almost glows in sunlight, cool and smooth to the touch, yet resonating with the human touch that shaped it. Every line, every curve, speaks of care, of intention, of a culture that valued both simplicity and symbolism. Imagine holding one in your hand. The weight is modest, but the presence profound. The same hand that carved it, the same hand that placed it carefully in the earth, is long gone. And yet through this small piece of marble, it reaches across thousands of years, connecting us to the minds and hearts of people who lived in a time we can barely imagine. Some of these figurines were broken intentionally, pieces left in the earth, a symbolic act. Perhaps by breaking them, the people of Caros were releasing their essence, offering them to the gods, or marking a transition, a moment of ritual closure. The fragments, though incomplete, still speak. They still tell the story of hands at work, of devotion, of belief. The hoard itself is immense. Hundreds of figures lie in quiet disarray, each one unique, yet united by a shared aesthetic. Their arms folded, their forms abstract, their presence serene. They do not demand attention, they do not shout, they whisper, and in their whisper, we hear the heartbeat of a long-vanished civilization. These figurines are not treasures in the conventional sense. They are not gilded with gold, nor studded with jewels. They are simple, they are ordinary, and yet, in their ordinariness, they are extraordinary. They carry stories of lives lived, of rituals performed, of a culture that sought to capture something eternal in marble. The act of carving itself is worth imagining. Each figure required skill, patience, an understanding of stone and form. Each cut of the chisel, each polished surface, is a mark of human intention, a bridge across millennia. The hands that worked the marble are gone, but their care remains. We may never know what these figurines truly meant to those who created them, but their beauty and serenity suggest a world in which even the smallest objects were invested with thought, meaning, and respect. We can imagine the rituals that surrounded these figurines. Perhaps they were laid upon altars, or carried through narrow paths from village to cliffside. Perhaps offerings were made, incense burned, songs sung in a language now lost to time. Each figurine, even broken, may have represented a prayer, a hope, or a memory. They were not merely art, they were vessels of intention, small fragments of a culture's soul, waiting silently for centuries, until we could stumble upon them, and feel, if only faintly, the presence of those long-gone hands. Some of the figurines were placed deliberately in groups, hundreds together, forming a quiet tableau of human shapes. Their abstraction invites the mind to wander. We can imagine families, ancestors, or mythological beings captured in marble, frozen not in reality, but in the idea of human life, ritual, and devotion. There is elegance in their simplicity, a clarity that transcends the ages. These figures remind us that beauty does not always need detail, that meaning can exist in proportion, in pose, in absence, as much as presence. The Kairos hoard was not left to be found lightly. It remained hidden, buried in earth and time, for thousands of years. Storms raged above, seasons turned, empires rose and fell, and all the while the figures lay in quiet patience, holding their secrets. The fragments we hold today are the survivors of countless millennia, carrying messages we may never fully understand, yet inspiring awe simply by their endurance. When we gaze upon these figurines now, we are invited to imagine the islands as they were, small villages clinging to cliffs, the scent of salt and herbs in the air, the sound of the sea lapping gently against rocks, children running along narrow paths, women carrying water in clay vessels, men tending goats or weaving simple boats. In the midst of this daily life, these figurines were carved, polished, placed, and sometimes broken, marking ceremonies, moments, and intentions that were deeply human and deeply felt. In their abstraction lies universality, the folded arms, the tilt of the head, the blank faces. These shapes allow us to project our own sense of humanity onto them. They become mirrors of our own existence, reflecting back the quiet rituals, the devotion, the longing for permanence that all humans carry. They are timeless. They endure beyond the collapse of cities, the erosion of cliffs, and the forgetting of names. The Kairos hoard reminds us that history is not always written in palaces or monuments. Sometimes it is hidden in fragments, buried in the earth, waiting for patient eyes to uncover it. Sometimes it survives in small abstract gestures, carved by hands that understood that even simplicity could be profound. They are not loud. They do not demand attention. They endure quietly, patiently, waiting for someone to notice. As we imagine holding one of these figurines, tracing the smooth curves with our fingers, we can feel a bridge to the past. The culture that produced these objects is gone, yet through the marble, through the elegance of the forms, we catch a whisper of their lives. We imagine the songs, the rituals, the prayers, and the care invested into every piece. We feel a connection to human creativity that is ancient, enduring, and profoundly moving. These figurines remain as witnesses, as messengers, as fragments of human existence. They do not tell us everything, and they never will, but in their quiet, in their calm, folded forms, we feel something eternal, something that whispers that history is not only found in grand gestures, but also in the small, enduring acts of creation, of devotion, of memory. They invite us to pause, to reflect, and to remember that even in abstraction, even in simplicity, there is a depth that spans thousands of years, waiting to be felt by those who take the time to look. The Kairos hoard endures as a testament to human intention and presence. Through its fragments we encounter lives lived, rituals performed, beliefs held, and beauty created. And though the people who carved these figures are long gone, their work remains, silent, serene, and timeless. The Cycladic figurines whisper across the ages, teaching us that the simplest of forms can carry the deepest of stories, and that sometimes history is not found in the grand, but in the quiet persistence of human creativity and memory. The White Hawk Chalk Drum. On the gentle slopes above the English coast, near the town of Brighton, time seems almost to fold in on itself. The cliffs rise softly above the sea, and the winds whisper stories carried from distant lands. Here among these rolling chalk hills, something extraordinary was discovered, a small, unassuming object that would speak volumes about people who lived thousands of years ago. This object is known as the White Hawk Chalk Drum. At first glance it appears simple, a carved cylinder of chalk, roughly the size of a small cup, decorated with shallow grooves and patterns. It does not gleam like gold, nor gleam with jewels, nor shout its importance, yet it holds within it a remarkable story. It connects us to a distant past, to a people who lived and created long before we ever walked these hills. The drum was found within the context of Neolithic White Hawk Hill Fort, an early settlement where communities gathered, farmed, and created. Life here was difficult and fragile. People depended on the land, on the weather, and on each other. And yet, in this place of survival, they found room for expression, for ritual, and for art. The White Hawk Chalk Drum, may have been a musical instrument, a container, or even a symbolic object used in ceremonies. Its exact purpose is unknown, yet its careful shaping and decoration suggest intention. Whoever carved this drum did not merely craft a tool, they created a piece imbued with meaning, with human attention, and with care. Each groove and curve speaks of hands that worked deliberately, thoughtfully, shaping chalk not just with skill but with reverence. Imagine holding this drum. It is cool to the touch, soft yet firm, light in your hand. Your fingers trace the carved lines, the patterns that have survived millennia, and you can almost feel the presence of the person who made it. You can imagine them leaning over their work, perhaps by the light of a small fire, carving each groove with concentration and patience, shaping their vision into solid form. The White Hawk chalk drum is not just an object, it is a bridge to the human mind of the Neolithic. It tells us that even in a time defined by survival, by the labor of the land, there was curiosity, creativity, and ritual. We may never know exactly how it was used, what it sounded like, or what it symbolized, but the fact that it was shaped at all speaks to a desire to create, to leave a mark, and to engage with the world in a way that transcends mere survival. Archaeologists have studied the drum carefully, noting its fine workmanship. The grooves are deliberate, the shape consistent, the decoration thoughtful. It may have been placed in graves or used in ceremonies. Perhaps it marked significant moments, rites of passage, or seasonal celebrations. In its quiet way, it connects us to the rhythms of life long ago: births, deaths, harvests, and the turning of seasons. We can imagine a small community on the chalk hills. The sun dips low in the sky, casting long shadows over the land. Fires glow in the center of the settlement. People gather to share food, to speak, to sing. And in the midst of this, the White Hawk chalk drum may have played a role. Perhaps it was struck to mark time, to call attention, to accompany a song, or to signal the beginning of a ritual. Perhaps it was held with reverence, passed from hand to hand, an object that grounded the community in shared experience and meaning. The drum is made of chalk, a material that is soft and fragile, yet enduring enough to survive thousands of years when carefully protected by earth. It is remarkable that it has survived at all, resting quietly in the soil, shielded from wind, rain, and human interference, until it was finally uncovered. Its survival reminds us that history often endures in the most unexpected forms. Ordinary materials can carry extraordinary stories. Small objects, unassuming and fragile, can speak to us across millennia. Each line, each curve, each groove is a message. It is a reminder that human beings have always sought to understand their world, to mark their presence, and to participate in the sacred. The White Hawk chalk drum embodies the intersection of daily life and ritual, the tangible expression of thought, creativity, and spirituality. It is an object of function and of poetry, a simple cylinder that contains within it the weight of human intention. When we hold it in our imagination, we feel a connection to the past. We imagine the hands that shaped it, the eyes that watched its creation, the moments in which it was used. Perhaps it was lifted during ceremonies, carried in processions, or struck to signal communal gatherings. It may have accompanied meals, celebrations, or rites of passage. Every groove carved into its surface is a footprint in time, a trace of human life reaching across thousands of years. And yet the drum also teaches us humility. It is not a monument, nor a palace, nor a crown. It does not proclaim power or wealth. Its significance lies in its quiet persistence, in its capacity to endure, in its connection to ordinary life infused with intention. It reminds us that history is not only written in grand gestures, but also in small, delicate acts of creation, in objects that were loved, used, and carried from day to day. We can imagine generations who may have encountered this drum. It may have been handled by different people, passed from parent to child, maintained with care, or stored in sacred places. Each touch, each handling, imbued it with additional meaning. Though the names of those who held it are lost, their presence lingers, captured in the grooves, in the shape, in the enduring chalk. The White Hawk chalk drum invites us to slow down, to reflect, to appreciate the simplicity of creation and the depth of human experience. It tells us that even in a world that can seem distant, alien, or unknowable, there were people with hearts, minds, and hands like our own. They observed, they crafted, they celebrated, and through this small object, they reached out to us across time. It remains a silent witness. It speaks not with words, but with form and texture, with subtlety and intention. It asks us to imagine, to ponder, to feel the presence of a world long gone, but intimately human. In the quiet of its survival, it tells us that even the smallest acts, shaping a cylinder, carving a groove, can resonate for thousands of years. The White Hawk chalk drum is not loud. It does not demand attention. It does not shout its importance. It whispers, and in that whisper, we hear a human story, a story of creativity, ritual, survival, and care. It is a testament to the endurance of human thought and feeling, a reminder that even the simplest objects can carry meaning far beyond their material presence. As we imagine the drum in use, as we hold it in our minds and hearts, we are connected to a past both familiar and strange. We see a community on the chalk hills, hear faint echoes of voices long gone, feel the rhythm of life, the passage of seasons, the presence of people who loved, worked, and dreamed. The drum embodies the bridge between everyday life and the sacred, the practical and the symbolic, the fleeting moment and the eternal. And so the White Hawk chalk drum endures. It remains a small, humble object, yet one filled with depth, history, and human presence. It asks nothing of us, yet gives everything it can, a glimpse into a world that existed thousands of years before ours, a connection to lives that are gone but not forgotten, and a reminder that even in the smallest creations, the human spirit persists, quietly and eternally, waiting for someone to listen. The Mehrgar dental drill beads. Long before the great cities of the Indus Valley rose along the rivers of South Asia, there existed a settlement at Mehrgar, nestled in what is now Pakistan. Here, over 9,000 years ago, people lived, farmed, and crafted objects that still whisper to us across the ages. Among the most remarkable discoveries from this ancient site are the drilled beads, small yet extraordinary artifacts that tell us so much about the ingenuity, skill, and care of these early human communities. At first glance, the beads seem simple, tiny fragments of stone, shell, or turquoise, carefully shaped, polished, and perforated. But these perforations are no accident. They are evidence of precision, patience, and remarkable technical skill. Archaeologists have identified what they call the world's first known dental drills here, tiny drills used to bore holes in beads, and astonishingly, even for dental purposes. These early tools, operated manually, allowed artisans to create objects of beauty and utility, long before metal tools or modern technologies existed. Imagine holding one of these beads in your hand. It is small, cool, smooth from countless hours of polishing. The hole, perfectly centered, is evidence of meticulous work. Perhaps it was part of a necklace, or a string of prayer beads, or a decorative garment. Perhaps it held symbolic or spiritual significance. Each bead carries within it a story, a fragment of human life, and a testament to the creativity of the Mehrgar people. The discovery of dental drills at Mehrgar reveals something extraordinary about this community. They were not only capable of artistic expression but also sophisticated enough to develop tools for precision work. Small drills made of stone or copper allowed them to bore tiny holes with incredible accuracy, both for ornamental purposes and for medical applications. There is evidence that these drills were used in dentistry, for treating tooth infections or abscesses. The thought that people 9,000 years ago could perform such delicate procedures is astounding, and it challenges our assumptions about early human technological capabilities. We can imagine the artisans at work. Perhaps a woman or a man sits by the light of a small fire holding a tiny piece of turquoise or shell. With focused hands, they rotate a miniature drill, piercing the surface with care and intention. The sound is faint, a subtle scraping or tapping. Hours pass in concentration, shaping, polishing, and perfecting. Each bead is an individual creation, yet part of a larger network of objects, traditions, and social practices. These beads were not mere decoration, they were markers of identity, status, and community. Wearing beads could indicate social standing, group affiliation, or personal achievement. A string of beads could serve as a ceremonial object, a charm, or a tool of personal adornment that carried meaning beyond its simple form. The labor invested in drilling them speaks of patience, skill, and attention to detail that resonates across millennia. Mehrgar was more than just a settlement, it was a hub of innovation. People here experimented with materials, refined techniques, and shared knowledge. The drilled beads represent not just artistry, but an early understanding of mechanical principles, a capacity for precision, and an insight into human anatomy. They reveal a society in which creativity, science, and daily life were intertwined. Imagine a person, long ago, wearing a string of these beads. The beads shift gently against the skin as they move. Each tiny perforation a silent record of care and intention. Perhaps these beads were treasured, passed down, or offered as gifts. Perhaps some were broken or lost, their fragments lying quietly in the earth until archaeologists would uncover them thousands of years later. Every bead recovered is a small miracle, a direct connection to human hands that lived, loved, worked, and created in a time that seems unimaginably distant. The beads also reveal a connection to the wider world. Materials such as turquoise or shells may have traveled from distant regions, hinting at trade networks and exchanges between communities. Each bead is evidence of movement, contact, and interaction, a token of cultural exchange that links Mehrgar to broader patterns of human activity across South Asia. When we examine these beads and the tools used to make them, we are reminded that innovation is not a modern phenomenon. Human beings have always been inventive, seeking solutions to practical and aesthetic challenges alike. The dental drills of Mehrgar demonstrate a sophistication and ingenuity that is humbling. They tell us that humans, even in prehistory, were capable of precision, artistry, and a deep understanding of the materials around them. Consider the rhythm of daily life at Mehrgar. Families tending crops, children learning skills from elders, artisans shaping beads and tools, and perhaps healers using drills to treat dental ailments. The drilled beads capture a moment in this rhythm, a pause of focused attention, an act of creation, a bridge between functionality and beauty. Each one embodies the human desire to leave a mark, to connect with others, and to shape the world thoughtfully and intentionally. The Mehrgar beads are small, unassuming, fragile, yet enduring. They do not shout of wealth or power, they whisper of diligence, care, and ingenuity. They remind us that history is not only found in monumental structures or grand empires, but also in the small, persistent acts of human creativity. Every bead, every perforation, every smooth surface is a story of someone who lived, thought, and acted long ago. When we reflect on the drilled beads, we see a testament to human resilience and curiosity. These small objects have survived thousands of years through the decay of organic matter, the shifting of earth, and the passage of countless generations. They are evidence that even ordinary lives can leave extraordinary traces, that the small things humans make can endure as powerful links to our shared past. As we imagine holding one of these beads, turning it gently between our fingers, we are drawn into the minds of the people who made it. We sense their skill, their patience, their care. We hear, in our imagination, the faint tapping of the drill, the scratch of stone against stone, the quiet labor of creation, and in this small, delicate object, we find a connection that transcends millennia, reminding us that the essence of humanity, the desire to create, to adorn, to care, to innovate, remains unchanged. The Mehrgar dental drill beads endure as silent witnesses to the ingenuity, artistry, and daily lives of a long-vanished people. They are small, delicate, and seemingly ordinary, yet they carry within them the extraordinary human story of invention, skill, and cultural expression. In their quiet presence, we are reminded that even the tiniest objects can tell the largest stories, and that through care, patience, and creativity, human beings have always reached across time to leave their mark. Through these beads, we feel the pulse of life at Mehrgar, the artistry, the experimentation, the focus, the community, and the care. They remind us that history is not only monumental, it is also fragile, delicate, and intimately human, and as these small beads whisper to us across thousands of years, they carry a message that is timeless, that human creativity, ingenuity, and care are eternal, reaching across the ages in the smallest, most enduring forms. The Lewis Chessman, Warder Piece. On the windswept shores of the Outer Hebrides, on the Isle of Lewis, time seems to move with the rhythm of the sea. Waves crash against rugged cliffs, winds whistle across the moors, and the past lingers in the quiet spaces between rocks and sand. It was here, centuries ago, that a treasure was buried. Small, carved figures of extraordinary skill that would endure through the ages, waiting to tell their story. Among these figures is one of the most intriguing, the Warder Piece from the Lewis Chessman. At first glance it is a simple object, a small figure carved from walrus ivory or whale teeth, its form dignified yet unassuming, its features both human and symbolic. The warder sits, upright, hands gripping the sides of the chair, eyes wide and alert, its expression both solemn and commanding. Despite its modest size, it carries an air of authority, of vigilance. It is a figure designed for strategy, for thought, and for quiet command over its domain. The Lewis chessmen date back to the late 12th or early 13th century, likely crafted in Norway, and eventually finding their way to the Outer Hebrides. The warder, sometimes called the rook, occupies a special place on the chessboard. Unlike pawns, which march forward in obedient lines, the warder is steadfast, defensive, a protector of its realm. In its carved expression, one can imagine the vigilance of a soldier or guard, watching over a fortress or castle, ensuring that nothing escapes its notice. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. Every fold of the garment, every line in the beard, every detail of the chair, is rendered with meticulous attention. The warder is both human and symbolic, a bridge between reality and imagination. It is an object meant to inspire thought and reflection, to stand as a sentinel, not just on the chessboard, but across the centuries, reminding us of the creativity, skill, and symbolism of the people who made it. Imagine holding the warder in your hands. Its weight is modest, yet its presence is commanding. You feel the smoothness of the ivory, the fine etchings, the subtle wear from centuries of handling. Perhaps it was once carried across seas in a leather pouch, buried in the earth for safekeeping, and eventually uncovered by those who could scarcely imagine its journey. The warder has traveled through time, not merely as a game piece, but as a witness to human history, carrying with it the essence of creativity and human intention. Chess in the medieval world was more than a game. It was a tool for teaching strategy, for understanding the interplay of power, for reflecting the hierarchy of society. The warder, in its quiet dignity, embodies these lessons. Its steadfast posture, its attentive gaze, reminds us that vigilance, patience, and careful thought have long been virtues celebrated by humans. Each move on the board mirrors the human desire for foresight and understanding, for anticipating consequences, for balancing offense and defense. The warder's expression is intriguing. Its eyes are wide, almost alert to an unseen threat. The mouth is slightly open, suggesting speech, command, or perhaps concentration. Every detail invites interpretation. Was the carver inspired by a real soldier, a guard stationed at a fortress? Or was it a symbolic representation of the ideal protector, a figure embodying vigilance, responsibility, and control? Perhaps both. It is this ambiguity that makes the Lewis chessmen so captivating. They are simultaneously concrete and abstract, playful and serious, functional and symbolic. We can imagine the environment in which it was created. A skilled artisan, in a quiet workshop, carving walrus ivory by candlelight or daylight streaming through a small window. Hands precise and patient, tools simple yet effective, imagination active and alive. Each warder took hours, perhaps days, to complete, a labor of both skill and devotion. The details of the robe, the posture of the hands, the chair, all reflect a mind attuned to beauty, symbolism, and meaning. Over centuries, the warder traveled far from its place of creation. Perhaps it crossed the North Sea, found its way to Scotland, hidden away for safekeeping, eventually resting in the earth of Lewis, until discovered hundreds of years later. Each phase of its journey adds to the story it carries, a silent witness to trade, travel, and human curiosity, surviving storms, war, and neglect to reach us today. The warder, along with the other Lewis chessmen, invites reflection not only on medieval life, but also on human creativity itself. In their creation we see technical skill, artistic sensibility, and cultural expression. In their preservation we see the enduring power of objects to connect past and present, to carry meaning and beauty across centuries. Imagine the warder placed upon a chessboard today, its small eyes fixed, poised for strategy. The moves of the game echo the decisions of those long ago who made it, who played with similar figures, who understood the interplay of power, patience, and foresight. Through this small object, we glimpse the minds and hands of people from a time we cannot fully imagine, yet feel intimately connected to. The warder is not grand. It is not adorned with gold or jewels. It does not shout for attention. And yet, in its quiet dignity, it carries a story larger than itself. It reminds us that human intention, creativity, and care can endure. That small objects can hold meaning far beyond their material form. It connects us to the past, teaches us about artistry, society, and human thought, and invites us to reflect on the persistence of culture and knowledge. Through the warder, we feel the pulse of a world long gone, a world of strategy and symbolism, of artisanship and human connection, of thoughtfulness and vigilance. It is a reminder that history is not only in the grand monuments or written records, but also in the small, carefully crafted objects that embody thought, care, and imagination. And so the warder sits, as it has for centuries, a sentinel across time, quiet yet commanding, simple yet profound. It whispers of the hands that made it, the minds that valued it, the worlds that moved around it. It reminds us that even small objects can carry the weight of human history, and that vigilance, patience, and creativity are virtues that transcend the ages. The Lewis chessman warder endures, bridging centuries and continents, inviting us to slow down, to observe, and to reflect on the human capacity to create, to imagine, and to connect. In its quiet presence, we feel a pulse of life from the past, a rhythm of hands and minds, a whisper that history is everywhere, even in the small and unassuming, waiting patiently to be discovered, understood, and appreciated. The Fayum portrait wax tablets. Along the banks of the Nile, where the river winds through the fertile lands of Egypt, life has long been shaped by water, soil, and the steady rhythm of the seasons. It is here, in the region of Fayum, that a remarkable discovery was made. Objects that connect us intimately with the faces, hands, and stories of people who lived thousands of years ago. Among these objects are the Fayum portrait wax tablets, small yet profound artifacts that allow us to glimpse the everyday lives, thoughts, and expressions of a long-vanished world. At first glance, a wax tablet seems simple, a wooden frame, filled with a thin layer of wax, smooth and dark, waiting to receive the imprint of words, numbers, or even images. But within this simplicity lies a wealth of human intention. Some tablets bear traces of writing, calculations, or lists. Others, more rarely, carry the delicate impressions of portraiture, small faces rendered in wax, sometimes colored, sometimes subtly shaded. These portraits capture individuality with remarkable subtlety, preserving expressions, hairstyles, and features with incredible fidelity. Imagine holding one of these tablets. The wax is soft, cool to the touch, yet durable enough to hold the impressions of thousands of years. Your fingers trace the outlines of a face, perhaps a child, perhaps a merchant, perhaps a relative or friend, captured not in paint or marble, but in a material meant for everyday use, for writing messages, learning, and recording life. And yet the image endures, a bridge across millennia, connecting us to a world that is long gone but unexpectedly familiar. The Fayum portrait wax tablets were used during a period when Egyptian and Roman cultures intertwined. People here adapted new materials and techniques, combining traditional Egyptian artistry with emerging Roman influences. Wax was an accessible and flexible medium, used both in homes and in offices, in schools and in workshops. While most tablets recorded mundane matters, lists, accounts, letters, some bore portraits. These small images hint at the desire to capture likeness, to preserve memory, and to assert presence in a world that was constantly changing. Consider the process. A craftsman or scribe carefully prepared a wooden tablet, filling it with a smooth layer of wax. With a stylus, they etched lines to form features, contours, and expressions. Perhaps pigments were applied, adding color to eyes, lips, or hair. Every line required attention and skill, every stroke deliberate. The faces created were not anonymous. They were intimate, personal, and enduring, a reflection of the human desire to be seen and remembered. Imagine the life surrounding these tablets. Families sitting in modest homes, children learning to write, merchants recording transactions, artisans practicing their craft. In the quiet of daily life, a tablet might be set aside, its wax surface holding the memory of a face, frozen in time. Perhaps the portrait was a gift, a keepsake, or a teaching tool. Perhaps it captured a fleeting expression, a smile, a thoughtful gaze, or the likeness of a loved one. In any case, it survived because someone cared enough to create it, to preserve it, to leave a trace of humanity behind. The Fayum portrait wax tablets reveal something profound about the people of this region. They valued memory, individuality, and artistry. Even in an era long before photography, even in materials meant to be temporary, they sought permanence. They sought to capture the essence of human presence, to create a tangible connection between life and memory. Every portrait is a testament to the universality of human concern, the desire to be remembered, to see others, and to leave a mark that survives beyond one's own lifetime. These tablets also tell a story about technology, trade, and cultural exchange. The wax, the pigments, the wooden frames, all reflect materials that were gathered, shaped, and distributed across a complex society. The techniques used to create portraits on wax were adapted over centuries, drawing from Egyptian traditions, Hellenistic influences, and Roman methods. Each tablet is a product of a rich cultural dialogue, a testament to human adaptability and ingenuity. Holding a Fayum portrait wax tablet in your imagination, you might see the eyes of a young woman, or the carefully shaped features of a merchant, or the playful gaze of a child. Each image is unique, each face tells a story, each line speaks across thousands of years. These tablets are small, intimate objects, yet they carry profound weight. They remind us that history is often found in the everyday, in objects that were not made for grandeur, but for memory, connection, and practical life. The tablets also invite reflection on mortality, memory, and legacy. Faces etched into wax may fade or crack over time, yet the intention remains, the act of creating, of capturing a likeness, of preserving a moment. These acts speak to the universal human desire to transcend time, to assert presence, and to connect with those who come after. In the fragile medium of wax, we see resilience, care, and the quiet power of human creativity. Consider the rhythm of life at Fayum, the Nile flowing steadily, fields of wheat and barley, small homes filled with daily activity, children practice writing, artisans shape clay, merchants record accounts, and someone carves a face into wax. The moment is ordinary, yet the result is extraordinary. In a small wooden frame, a human face endures, reminding us that even in the humblest circumstances, art, care, and intention flourish. These wax tablets are more than mere objects, they are connections. They connect us to lives that were once ordinary, but through preservation, extraordinary. They allow us to meet people across centuries, to see their faces, and to imagine their stories. Each portrait is a whisper from the past, a quiet voice saying, "I lived, I mattered, I was here." The Fayum portrait wax tablets endure not because of material grandeur, but because of human intention. They are fragile, intimate, and unassuming, yet they carry stories of creativity, memory, and connection. In their quiet presence, we find reflection, empathy, and the timeless desire to reach across generations. They remind us that history is not only in monuments, temples, or grand artifacts, but also in small, delicate objects that preserve the essence of human life. As we imagine tracing the contours of a wax portrait, we feel a connection to people who lived thousands of years ago, their hands, their minds, their creativity, and their humanity. Each tablet is a bridge across time, a reminder that even the smallest gestures can endure, and that the human desire to see, to be seen, and to remember transcends all ages. Through the Fayum portrait wax tablets, we witness the ordinary and the extraordinary intertwined, daily life captured in a medium meant for communication, yet preserved as art, fleeting expressions rendered permanent, individual presence immortalized in the simplest of forms. They remind us that even in fragile materials, human creativity and memory can survive, whispering stories that endure beyond centuries, inviting us to slow down, reflect, and connect with those who came long before us. And so these small tablets rest in our imagination and in museums, fragile yet enduring, silent yet profound. They carry the faces, hands, and intentions of people who lived in Fayum, speaking across millennia. They remind us that even in the smallest objects, even in wax meant to be temporary, there is a permanence born of human care, artistry, and the desire to be remembered. They are humble, intimate, and eternal, whispering the timeless story of human connection. The Ust-Ishim bone flute. Far to the northeast of the European plains, where the Siberian tundra stretches endlessly beneath pale skies, there is a silence that feels ancient. The wind moves slowly across frozen rivers, snow drifts silently over forests, and time seems to linger, measured not in hours but in centuries. It is in this frozen landscape, nearly 40,000 years ago, that one of humanity's earliest known musical instruments was created, the Ust-Ishim bone flute. At first glance it is simple, a small piece of bone, carefully hollowed, with holes drilled along its length. Yet within its simplicity lies profound complexity. The flute represents an act of intention, a spark of creativity, and a desire to communicate through sound. It is evidence that even in the harshest environments, humans sought not only to survive, but also to create, to express, and to connect through art and music. The Ust-Ishim bone flute was made from the bone of a bird, meticulously shaped and drilled. Archaeologists have studied its proportions, the placement of the holes, the smoothness of its surfaces. Each detail reflects deliberate craftsmanship, a precision that required knowledge, patience, and skill. It was not a tool for survival in the conventional sense, but it was a tool for the human spirit, capable of producing sound that resonated through frozen landscapes and perhaps through human hearts in ways words could not. Imagine holding this flute. Its surface is smooth, polished by hands long gone. Your fingers trace the small holes, each one carefully measured to produce a specific note. Perhaps it was held by a young man or woman sitting near a fire, the snow falling softly outside, the darkness of winter pressing against the shelter. With a breath, a note emerges, and in that sound, a story is told, a connection is made, a moment of human presence is immortalized. Music in the Paleolithic was not merely entertainment, it carried social, spiritual, and emotional significance. Flutes like this one may have accompanied rituals, celebrations, or communal gatherings. Perhaps they were used to communicate across distances, to signal presence, or to mark transitions in life, births, deaths, initiations, or seasonal changes. The creation of music was an intimate act, connecting humans to one another, to their environment, and to the unseen forces they perceived around them. The holes in the Ust-Ishim bone flute are evidence of careful experimentation. The maker had to understand pitch, airflow, and the properties of the bone itself. Each perforation was intentional, each detail refined, producing sound that could carry across snowfields, drift through shelters, or resonate in the stillness of the tundra. In these small, precise holes, we see the spark of innovation and the universality of human curiosity. We can imagine the life of those who created it. A group of humans living in tents or shelters, hunting for game, foraging for plants, tending to children, maintaining tools, and surviving in a world that is cold, vast, and often unforgiving. In the quiet moments, perhaps by the fire or under the aurora-lit sky, someone held this flute and drew music from it. The sound would have been fragile, beautiful, ephemeral, yet meaningful. It was a way of connecting, a way of marking time, a way of expressing emotion beyond what words could capture. The Ust-Ishim bone flute also reminds us of the universality of music. Across continents and millennia, humans have turned to sound to communicate, to celebrate, to mourn, to teach, and to explore the self. This small piece of bone is not merely an artifact, it is evidence of a capacity that defines our species, the ability to imagine, to create, and to connect through art. Consider the journey of this flute through time. It lay buried for tens of thousands of years, shielded by soil and permafrost, untouched, silent. Empires rose and fell, climates shifted, forests grew and receded, yet the flute remained. Eventually, archaeologists uncovered it, fragile yet complete, and in that moment, a voice from the past emerged. The flute speaks not in words, but in sound, in possibility, in the human impulse to create meaning. even in the harshest circumstances. Holding this flute in your mind, you can almost hear its notes, simple, haunting, melodic. Perhaps it was part of a duet, or perhaps a solo song carried through the wind. Perhaps it marked a ritual, or perhaps it was a private act, a musician playing for themselves and the silent snow. Each note, each breath, is a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring desire to shape experience, to leave a trace, to express the ineffable. The Estisham bone flute also reminds us that creativity often arises in adversity. In a landscape where survival required constant effort, humans still sought beauty and expression. The flute is a symbol of resilience, of the human capacity to find wonder, to connect, and to endure. It teaches us that art is not a luxury, but a fundamental aspect of being human, inseparable from daily life, memory, and identity. Imagine the continuity of human experience that this flute represents. Thousands of years ago, someone learned the properties of bone, experimented with sound, and created music. Today, we uncover their work, study it, and reflect on the universality of creativity. We recognize ourselves in their intentions, our curiosity mirrored in theirs, our desire to connect expressed through the same humble medium of breath and material. The flute is small, unassuming, and yet extraordinary. It does not bear jewels, inscriptions, or grandiose decoration. Its power lies in its purpose, in its subtlety, in the intimacy of its design. It is a bridge across time, a testament to the continuity of human imagination, and a reminder that the human spirit thrives even in the most challenging conditions. Through the Unsolved bone flute, we hear more than music. We hear a dialogue across millennia. We hear the connection of hands, minds, and breath. We feel the pulse of human ingenuity, curiosity, and expression. In its delicate form, we find evidence of thought, care, and creativity, preserved for tens of thousands of years, waiting for us to listen, reflect, and remember. And so, the Unsolved bone flute endures. It rests silently in museums and research collections, small yet profound. It reminds us that history is not only in monuments or written records, but also in fragile ephemeral objects that capture the essence of human life. It is a witness, a teacher, and a connection. It tells us that music, creativity, and the impulse to communicate are as old as humanity itself, and that even the simplest objects can carry the weight of human experience across vast spans of time. Through this small flute, we feel the breath of those long gone. We hear the faint echoes of a melody that once filled a frozen landscape. We connect, quietly, intimately, and profoundly, to the people who made it, to their creativity, their intention, and their humanity. The Unsolved bone flute whispers across the ages, inviting us to pause, to reflect, and to listen, not only to its sound, but to the enduring story of human life it carries. The Hochdorf gold couch ornaments. In the rolling hills of southwestern Germany, amid the fields and forests of Baden-Württemberg, there lies a site of extraordinary discovery, the Hochdorf burial mound. Beneath the earth, hidden for over 2,000 years, archaeologists uncovered a treasure that speaks to wealth, artistry, and ritual in the early Iron Age. Among the most captivating elements of this find are the gold couch ornaments, small yet intricate objects that once adorned a lavish funeral couch, marking the resting place of a person of immense status. At first glance, the ornaments are delicate, sheets of gold, carefully embossed, sometimes shaped into animal motifs or geometric patterns. They do not shout wealth, rather they shimmer quietly, their elegance subtle, their craftsmanship meticulous. In their details we glimpse the skill of artisans who worked with patience, precision, and vision, shaping gold into forms that would endure long after their hands were gone. The Hochdorf burial itself was monumental. Within the mound lay a large wooden couch, on which the deceased, a man of high status, likely a chieftain or leader, was laid to rest. Surrounding him were weapons, jewelry, drinking vessels, and the gold ornaments that once adorned the couch. Each piece, though small, held symbolic and aesthetic significance. The ornaments connected the living and the dead, the mundane and the sacred, the material world and the spiritual. Imagine the scene. A funeral procession moving through the forest, the community gathered, mourners and celebrants alike, carrying offerings and adorning the central figure with symbols of power and prestige. The gold ornaments, once attached to the couch, caught the light of the fire, gleaming softly, reflecting both reverence and artistry. They were not just decoration, they were statements of identity, of hierarchy, of ritual intention. Gold, even in small sheets, is a demanding medium. It requires care, skill, and an understanding of its properties. Too thin, and it tears. Too thick, and it loses elegance. The craftsmen of Hochdorf had mastered this balance. Each ornament was hammered, embossed, and shaped with precision, a testament to human patience and ingenuity. Their motifs, spirals, animal forms, abstract designs, carry meaning that may have been understood intuitively by the people of the time, communicating messages of power, protection, and reverence. We can imagine these artisans at work, perhaps in a quiet workshop, guided by the light of the sun or a fire. A craftsman carefully hammers a thin sheet of gold, coaxing it into shape. Each line, each curve, each indentation is intentional. Perhaps the motifs reflect stories, myths, or the natural world around them, animals they hunted, patterns they revered, symbols they associated with strength and leadership. The creation of these ornaments is not merely a technical act, it is an act of culture, of meaning-making, of human expression. The Hochdorf gold couch ornaments also speak to the social structure of the time. They were markers of wealth and status, symbols that distinguished the powerful from the ordinary. Yet their beauty is not just in the social signal they carried. They are beautiful because they reflect human care, attention, and imagination. They remind us that across time, humans have sought to honor one another, to preserve memory, and to create objects that embody value beyond mere function. Holding one of these ornaments in your mind, you can feel its delicate curves, imagine its placement on the couch, its subtle gleam in the torchlight. Perhaps it adorned the backrest, catching the light as mourners circled, or lay along the edges, framing the figure with elegance and care. Every detail is intentional, every design a reflection of both artistry and belief. The gold may be precious, but it is the human touch that gives it true significance. The Hochdorf burial also tells a story of ritual and memory. The gold couch ornaments were part of a broader tableau designed to honor the dead, to signal their importance, and to connect the living with the spiritual world. Each ornament, though small, was chosen with care, crafted with attention, and placed with intention. In this way, they are not merely objects, they are participants in an act of cultural memory, carriers of meaning across centuries. Imagine the passage of time. The mound is covered, the wood beneath it slowly decays, the landscape shifts, forests grow, seasons pass, and yet the gold endures. Millennia later, archaeologists uncover these small ornaments, intact in their beauty, revealing the hand of the past to us. The ornaments bridge the gap between then and now, whispering stories of power, art, and human care that transcend the ages. The gold couch ornaments are not merely relics of wealth, they are intimate witnesses to human creativity, ritual, and social life. They show us that even in ancient times, people sought to honor, to beautify, to communicate status and belief through art. They reveal a society capable of abstract thought, aesthetic appreciation, and careful craftsmanship. They remind us that even small objects, when created with care and intention, carry significance far beyond their size. Consider the life of the man who rested on that couch, adorned with these ornaments. He lived in a world shaped by agriculture, trade, social hierarchy, and ritual. He witnessed seasons, feasts, journeys, and the labor of his people. The gold ornaments attached to his couch were both personal and symbolic, a testament to his life and to the reverence of those who placed them there. Even today, when we observe these ornaments, we feel a connection to that moment in time. We see not just the gold, but the care, the intention, and the artistry. We imagine the hands that crafted them, the hands that placed them, and the people who gathered to honor a life. Through these small pieces of metal, we feel the human presence that transcends centuries, linking us to rituals, aesthetics, and values of a long-past world. The Hochdorf gold couch ornaments endure not because of their material, but because of their meaning. They are symbols of creativity, ritual, and human intention. They speak quietly yet profoundly, reminding us that even the smallest artifacts carry stories of lives, beliefs, and societies. They are a testament to the enduring human desire to create, to honor, and to be remembered. As we imagine tracing the embossed patterns, feeling their gentle curves in our minds, we are reminded that history is found not only in grand monuments or written texts, but also in delicate objects, crafted with care and imbued with significance. The ornaments whisper across time, telling us that human artistry, ritual, and memory are eternal, enduring through centuries, waiting to be discovered, appreciated, and understood. Through the Hochdorf gold couch ornaments, we see the interplay of artistry and ritual, power and memory, fragility and endurance. They are small, intimate, and yet profoundly human. They invite us to pause, to reflect, and to connect with a world that existed long before us, reminding us that even in the smallest gestures, hammering gold, shaping designs, honoring the dead, humanity endures. And so the Hochdorf gold couch ornaments rest in their museum cases, delicate yet enduring, silent yet eloquent. They carry with them the hands, minds, and intentions of people who lived millennia ago, whispering the timeless story of human creativity, reverence, and the desire to leave a mark. Through them, we glimpse the lives of those who came before, and in that reflection, we see ourselves, curious, expressive, and endlessly attentive to the beauty of our world. The Nahal Mishmar Copper Crown. Deep in the Judean desert, among the rugged cliffs and arid canyons, a remarkable discovery was made that reshaped our understanding of the Copper Age in the Levant. Hidden for thousands of years in a cave near Nahal Mishmar, archaeologists uncovered a hoard of extraordinary artifacts, tools, weapons, and ceremonial objects, all crafted with remarkable skill. Among these finds was one object that captures the imagination more than any other: the copper crown, a symbol of power, artistry, and ritual from a time long past. At first glance, the crown seems simple, a carefully shaped piece of copper, worked to fit the human head, yet adorned with intricate patterns and geometric motifs. Its surface is embossed, hammered, and refined, revealing a level of craftsmanship that astonishes even modern observers. Though the crown is made of metal, it has a warmth, a quiet presence, as if it holds the hands and intentions of the people who made it, a direct connection across millennia. The Nahal Mishmar hoard dates to approximately 3500 BCE, a time when human societies were experimenting with metallurgy, ritual, and social organization. The crown is not merely a decorative object, it is a statement, a symbol of authority, and perhaps even of sacred power. It tells us that the people who created it had not only the technical skill to shape copper, but also the cultural imagination to infuse an object with meaning far beyond its material. Imagine holding the crown in your hands. It is heavy, cool, yet smooth to the touch, the embossed patterns catching the light. Each line and indentation reflects deliberate thought. Perhaps it was worn by a chieftain, a priest, or a ceremonial leader. Perhaps it was placed carefully on the head during sacred rituals, signifying authority, divinity, or connection to the unseen forces that govern the world around them. The crown embodies both human skill and human imagination, a testament to the interplay of power, artistry, and belief. The Nahal Mishmar copper artifacts, including the crown, were discovered in a sealed cave, buried together as if intentionally hidden. Their preservation is remarkable, allowing us to see the sophistication of early metallurgy. The crown itself shows evidence of advanced techniques, hammering, shaping, annealing, that indicate a profound understanding of metalworking. This was a culture experimenting with materials, refining skills, and creating objects that would endure for millennia. We can imagine the life of the people who made it. Perhaps they lived in small communities, herding goats, cultivating barley, and navigating the harsh desert terrain. Within these daily routines, artisans worked with copper, shaping it into tools, ornaments, and ceremonial objects. Among them, someone meticulously hammered and embossed the crown, guided by both technique and vision, creating an object that was practical in size, yet monumental in meaning. The crown likely carried symbolic significance beyond its beauty. In early societies, power and authority were often expressed through objects. The Nahal Mishmar crown may have denoted leadership, spiritual authority, or ceremonial importance. Worn during rituals or significant events, it connected the wearer to the community, the divine, or the ancestral past. It is a reminder that objects are never neutral. They carry the intentions, values, and beliefs of those who made and used them. Imagine a ceremony long ago, the crown placed upon a leader's head, the desert winds moving silently across the cliffs, firelight dancing on copper surfaces, the community gathered in reverent attention. Perhaps chants, music, or the beating of drums accompanied the ritual. Every detail, from the crown's design to its placement, was meaningful. It communicated authority, tradition, and the sacred in a way that transcended words. The crown also speaks to the universality of human creativity. Across continents and eras, humans have adorned themselves with objects that signify status, identity, and connection. The Nahal Mishmar copper crown is part of this continuum, a precursor to crowns and regalia in cultures that would follow thousands of years later. It is both unique to its context and deeply familiar, reflecting a human desire to express power, beauty, and meaning through crafted objects. The story of the crown's preservation is as compelling as its creation. Hidden in a cave, the copper endured, sheltered from wind, sand, and time. Millennia later, archaeologists uncovered it, intact in its elegance, revealing the care, skill, and intention of people who lived thousands of years ago. Each embossed line, each shape, is a voice from the past, connecting us directly to the hands and minds that shaped it. Holding this crown in imagination, one can feel its presence. The copper is cold yet alive with history. The patterns, subtle yet deliberate, evoke thought, intention, and artistry. It was more than a headpiece, it was a statement of identity, a mark of human ingenuity, and a reflection of cultural values. The crown embodies a bridge across time, linking the people of Nahal Mishmar to us, and reminding us of the continuity of human creativity and ritual. The crown's significance extends beyond its aesthetic. It provides insight into social structures, spiritual beliefs, and technological advancement. It tells us that even in early societies, humans were capable of sophisticated thought, deliberate craftsmanship, and symbolic communication. It reminds us that human culture has always been intertwined with material expression, and that objects can carry meaning across centuries, shaping the way we understand the past. Imagine tracing the embossed patterns with your fingers, imagining the ceremonial context, the community, the rituals, the desert landscape. Each detail whispers stories of authority, spirituality, and human ingenuity. Even small objects like this crown carry immense cultural weight, revealing the values and imagination of societies that existed thousands of years before our own. The Nahal Mishmar copper crown is quiet, unassuming in its material, yet profound in its presence. It is not adorned with gemstones or lavish decoration, but its elegance lies in craftsmanship, purpose, and symbolic meaning. It reminds us that the most enduring artifacts are often those created with care, intention, and vision, speaking across centuries to connect human experience. Through this crown, we feel a pulse of history, the hands that shaped it, the minds that envisioned it, the rituals that elevated it. We connect with people across millennia, understanding that their lives, their beliefs, and their creativity were as rich and meaningful as our own. The crown is a witness, a messenger, and a bridge, silent yet eloquent, fragile yet enduring. The Nahal Mishmar copper crown invites reflection on creativity, ritual, authority, and continuity. It reminds us that even in small, simple objects, human intention endures. It teaches us that history is not only recorded in monuments, texts, or grand artifacts, but also in carefully crafted objects that carry meaning, identity, and artistry across millennia. And so, the copper crown rests, still remarkable, still resonant. It carries the legacy of early human skill, imagination, and ritual, whispering the stories of those who shaped it, wore it, and revered it. Through this small yet extraordinary object we glimpse the ingenuity, artistry, and spirit of a people long gone, yet still profoundly present through the objects they created. The Windabi Girl Blindfold Band. Along the misty coastlines of northern Germany, in the quiet landscapes of Schleswig-Holstein, the peat bogs have long guarded secrets of the past. Beneath layers of earth and water, human history has been preserved in ways that seem almost miraculous. It is here, in the soft acidic peat, that the Windabi Girl was discovered, a young life suspended in time, her story partially hidden, yet silently speaking across centuries. Among the enigmatic details of her discovery is the small haunting object wrapped around her eyes, a blindfold band, subtle in appearance, yet rich in meaning and mystery. At first glance, the blindfold is simple, a narrow strip of material, carefully tied, resting across her closed eyes. Its purpose is not immediately obvious, yet its presence invites reflection. Was it part of a ritual? Was it symbolic? Or was it intended to shield her from the world, in life or in death? The band is a reminder that even the smallest artifacts can hold immense significance, and that human intention, no matter how subtle, can endure across millennia. The Windabi Girl lived during the Iron Age, a time when communities were small, lives were intertwined with the land, and human experience was shaped by survival, ritual, and society. The bogs of northern Europe were often sites of offerings, burials, and perhaps sacrifices, and they preserved the dead with a peculiar intimacy. Unlike stone monuments or written records, the bog captures the human body and its adornments with astonishing fidelity. The blindfold band, resting across her eyes, is a quiet testament to the care, symbolism, and mystery that surrounded her life and death. Imagine the hands that placed the band, perhaps a parent, a priest, or a community member tied it carefully, the fabric soft against her skin, securing it with a sense of purpose. Each knot, each fold, may have carried meaning, marking transition, ritual, or status. The material itself, organic, fragile, yet enduring through the bog's chemical embrace, connects us to human intention in a tactile and intimate way. In this simple strip of fabric, we sense thought, attention, and perhaps even emotion. The Windabi Girl's blindfold also invites questions about perception and identity. Was it meant to shield her from sight in life or death? Was it symbolic, representing innocence, protection, or transition? The ambiguity itself is part of its power. It allows us to imagine, to wonder, and to reflect on the human experiences and beliefs of those long gone. Through this small object we are drawn into the broader tapestry of Iron Age life, ritual, and symbolism. Consider the context of her life. The communities of northern Germany were connected to the land, the seasons, and one another. Daily life involved tending to animals, cultivating crops, creating tools, and participating in social and spiritual rituals. In this setting, objects like the blindfold band were not mere decoration, they were part of a complex web of meaning, connecting individuals to family, community, and the unseen forces they believed governed the world around them. The preservation of the band is extraordinary. Unlike wood, bone, or cloth exposed to air, the acidic peat of the bog slowed decay, capturing details that would otherwise have vanished. The band survives as both artifact and symbol, a small intimate object that speaks volumes about human life, ritual, and belief. It reminds us that history is not only written in stone or metal, but also in the delicate materials of daily life, preserved by chance and time. Imagine the moment of discovery. Archaeologists carefully uncover her body, noting the position of the limbs, the expression of the face, the presence of the blindfold. Each detail invites reflection. The fabric, though small and seemingly simple, anchors us in a human story. It connects us to a moment long ago, a decision made by someone who sought to honor, protect, or mark the Windaby girl in a way meaningful to their community. The blindfold also raises questions about ritual practice. Bog bodies across northern Europe often display unique features, bindings, placements, or adornments that hint at ceremony, sacrifice, or social norms. The Windaby girl's band may have been part of a rite of passage, a protective measure, or a symbolic gesture. Its meaning may remain partially hidden, but in that very ambiguity lies its power, inviting contemplation, imagination, and empathy. We can also reflect on the broader human connection it represents. Across centuries and continents, humans have used bands, veils, and coverings to mark transitions, express identity, and symbolize protection. The Windaby girl's blindfold connects us to this enduring practice, reminding us that even the simplest materials can carry profound significance, and that human intention, care, and creativity transcend time. Holding this moment in your mind, you can see the girl resting in the bog, her features preserved, the blindfold across her eyes. You can imagine the hands that placed it, the beliefs that guided the act, and the society that shaped her life. Each thread, each fold, each knot is a whisper of human thought and intention. A subtle yet profound connection across millennia. The blindfold is quiet, unassuming, yet powerful. It carries no inscription, no elaborate decoration, no overt display of wealth or status, yet it speaks of care, ritual, and human concern, echoing the universal desire to protect, honor, and remember. In its modest form, it embodies the richness of human life, ritual practice, and symbolic thought. Through the Windaby girl's blindfold, we glimpse the intersection of life, death, and memory. We feel the pulse of human intention, the continuity of ritual practice, and the enduring resonance of small, carefully chosen objects. It reminds us that history is often found not in grand monuments or written texts, but in delicate, intimate details that capture the essence of human experience. The Windaby girl's blindfold band endures as a silent witness. It bridges the past and present, inviting us to pause, reflect, and connect with lives long gone. It teaches us that even the smallest gestures, tying a strip of cloth, observing ritual care, honoring a life, can resonate across millennia, carrying meaning, emotion, and humanity forward. And so the Windaby girl rests in the peat, her blindfold preserved, her story partially visible, her presence quietly enduring. Through this small, fragile object, we feel a human connection that spans thousands of years, a connection of care, ritual, artistry, and remembrance. The blindfold is both object and story, small in size yet immense in meaning, whispering the timeless narrative of human life, attention, and the desire to be remembered. The Amarna glass ingot. In the sun-baked lands of ancient Egypt, where the Nile carves its path through deserts and fertile plains, a remarkable story of human ingenuity and artistry unfolds. Among the treasures of the Amarna period, archaeologists discovered small yet extraordinary artifacts, glass ingots, raw materials for a craft that would inspire awe and admiration for millennia. Among these, the Amarna glass ingot stands as a quiet testament to innovation, skill, and the human desire to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. At first glance, the ingot appears simple, a small block of glass, solid, smooth, and subtly colored, waiting to be transformed. But within this simplicity lies a profound achievement. The glass represents experimentation, creativity, and technical mastery in an era when the process of glassmaking was still emerging. It speaks to a culture that sought beauty, durability, and expression through materials that were rare, challenging, and precious. The Amarna period, during the reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten, was a time of artistic and religious revolution. Artists and craftsmen explored new forms, new techniques, and new aesthetics. Glass, with its translucent quality and ability to hold color, was a medium full of potential. The ingot is a starting point, a material awaiting transformation. It is raw yet intentional, offering insight into the thought processes of ancient artisans, the experimentation that led to vessels, jewelry, and decorative items. Imagine the hands that first held the ingot. A craftsman lifted it from the kiln, its surface still warm, its color shimmering in the firelight. They would study its properties, how it could be shaped, melted, or combined with pigments. Each ingot carried potential. From it, one could create delicate beads, vessels with intricate patterns, or small decorative pieces that would last centuries. In this way, the ingot was not merely raw material, it was the seed of artistry, innovation, and imagination. Glassmaking was no simple task. It required knowledge of heat, timing, and chemical composition. Craftsmen had to balance fire and material, anticipating how the ingot would react, change, and solidify. Each piece required foresight, patience, and a delicate touch. The Amarna glass ingot reflects this mastery. It embodies the human desire to experiment, to create beauty from raw elements, and to shape experience through skill and vision. The ingot also speaks to trade, economy, and culture. Glass was rare and valuable in ancient Egypt, often imported or carefully produced using specialized techniques. Its presence in Amarna indicates a society that valued craftsmanship, innovation, and aesthetics. It reminds us that even in antiquity, people sought materials that transcended the ordinary, transforming them into objects that could inspire wonder and admiration. Imagine the journey of the ingot. It was heated, shaped, and perhaps remelted multiple times. Each transformation brought it closer to its final purpose. Perhaps it became a bead in a necklace, a vessel to hold perfumes, or a decorative inlay in a ceremonial object. Through these transformations, the glass took on meaning, bridging material and culture, technique and imagination, artisan and observer. The ingot also evokes reflection on creativity and experimentation. Ancient artisans were pioneers, testing limits, exploring possibilities, and discovering what raw materials could become. Each ingot represents a challenge met, a solution found, and an aesthetic decision made. The glowing, translucent block of glass is a witness to human curiosity, resilience, and the drive to turn potential into tangible beauty. Holding it in the mind's eye, one can imagine a workshop, firelight flickering on walls, craftsmen hunched over furnaces, tools in hand, focusing intently on transforming raw glass into objects of elegance and function. The ingot is alive with potential. Its color hints at pigments yet to be added. Its form awaits shaping. Its presence is a reminder that human ingenuity thrives in the tension between material and vision. The Amarna glass ingot is also a lesson in impermanence and endurance. Raw glass is fragile, yet once shaped, it can endure millennia. The ingot survived, a silent witness to ancient practice, experimentation, and artistry. Its existence allows us to glimpse not only the finished products but also the process itself, the careful planning, the technical skill, and the human curiosity that brought creation into being. It connects us to the broader story of human innovation. Across continents and centuries, people have experimented with materials to create beauty, utility, and expression. The Amarna ingot reminds us that mastery often begins with raw, unassuming beginnings. It is the starting point, the spark, the potential waiting to be realized through thought, care, and skill. Through this small, seemingly simple object, we see the intersection of material, culture, and human imagination. It is a reminder that beauty is not always apparent at first glance. Sometimes it lies hidden in potential, in the careful work of transformation, in the vision of those who see what raw matter can become. The ingot embodies this quiet, enduring truth. Imagine, after millennia, that ingot resting in a modern hand, its edges smooth, its color subtle, a witness to human curiosity and artistry across time. We see not only what it was, but what it could become. We imagine the artisans of Amarna, their skill and vision, their experimentation and care. In the small block of glass, we connect with the past, understanding the ingenuity and creativity that defines humanity. The Amarna glass ingot endures as both material and symbol. It is humble in size, yet profound in meaning. It reminds us that even raw beginnings hold the potential for extraordinary expression. It whispers of fire, hands, skill, and imagination. It tells us that the pursuit of beauty, knowledge, and transformation is timeless, and that human creativity is as enduring as it is inspired. Through the Amarna glass ingot, we glimpse the birth of artistry, the intersection of science and imagination, and the continuity of human innovation. It is a small, tangible link between the ancient world and our own, a quiet yet eloquent testament to the power of curiosity, skill, and vision across thousands of years. And so the ingot rests, unassuming yet profound. It carries the story of human ingenuity, experimentation, and artistry. It reminds us that even the simplest beginnings, fire-heated blocks of glass, can be transformed into objects of wonder, connecting the past, present, and future through human creativity and intention. The Hallstatt salt miner's shoe. Deep within the salt-rich mountains of Hallstatt, in the Austrian Alps, the earth has long held secrets of human labor, ingenuity, and endurance. Among the layers of rock and mineral, archaeologists uncovered a remarkable artifact, a miner's shoe, worn and preserved, a small yet profound testament to life in the early salt mines. It is an object of simple function, yet it carries a story that resonates across centuries, connecting us to the everyday lives of people long gone. At first glance, the shoe appears unassuming, sturdy leather, shaped to protect the foot, worn from years of work, yet within its simplicity lies immense significance. This was not merely footwear, It was a companion to long hours of labor, a shield against harsh underground conditions, and a witness to the rhythms of daily life in one of Europe's earliest mining communities. The Hallstatt mines, dating back over 3,000 years, were places of both danger and opportunity. Salt, precious and essential, was extracted through arduous labor, often deep beneath the mountains, where light was scarce and conditions harsh. Miners depended on practical tools, protective gear, and resilience. The shoe embodies all of these: functionality, durability, and human adaptation to the environment. Imagine holding the shoe, feeling the texture of its leather, aware of countless footsteps, the imprint of a foot that moved through tunnels, over rock, and across wet, slippery surfaces. Each crease and scratch is a record of activity, a tactile map of effort and endurance. The shoe tells us about movement, posture, and labor. It is an intimate record of human life, preserved through the mineral-rich environment of the salt mine. The craftsmanship of the shoe reveals both practicality and care. The leather was shaped and stitched to protect the foot, yet flexible enough to allow movement. The design reflects an understanding of material, environment, and need. It is an example of early technological innovation, humble in appearance, yet crucial to survival and efficiency in one of the most challenging workplaces of the time. We can imagine the life of the miner who wore it, perhaps a young man, rising before dawn, descending into tunnels carved from rock, wielding tools to extract salt crystals that would sustain communities far beyond the mountains. Hours passed underground in dim light, the air filled with dust and mineral particles, the body enduring strain, the mind focused on survival and productivity. In all of this, the shoe was constant, a small yet essential companion. The shoe also reflects social and economic dimensions. Salt was a precious commodity, essential for preserving food and for trade. The miners who worked these tunnels contributed not only to local sustenance, but also to a broader economy, a network of trade and cultural exchange. Their labor, encapsulated in objects like this shoe, was part of a system that shaped human societies, connecting mountains and valleys, communities and economies. Imagine the journey of the shoe over time. Buried in mineral-rich strata, it was preserved almost miraculously. The leather hardened, yet retained shape. The wear marks endured. The story of the foot that once moved tirelessly through the tunnels remained. Millennia later, archaeologists uncovered it, a fragile yet eloquent testament to human labor, endurance, and daily life. The miner's shoe invites reflection on resilience and human ingenuity. In harsh, challenging conditions, people adapted, innovated, and persevered. Simple objects like footwear become records of adaptation, embodiments of human skill and endurance. Each stitch, each curve, each worn spot tells a story of effort, care, and persistence, reminding us that history is often written in the quiet details of everyday life. Holding this artifact in your mind, you can feel the weight of work, the rhythm of movement, the tactile connection between human and earth. You can imagine the miner navigating tunnels, the glow of lamps flickering on rock walls, the sound of hammer on salt, the echo of footsteps in enclosed spaces. The shoe was part of this rhythm, carrying, protecting, and enduring. It also connects us to broader themes of human experience: labor, necessity, adaptation, and creativity. Across cultures and time, humans have shaped objects to meet needs, to endure hardship, and to improve life. The Hallstatt miner's shoe is a tangible link to this universal endeavor, a small yet profound record of ingenuity, care, and persistence. The preservation of the shoe is extraordinary, reminding us that even humble objects can survive for millennia under the right conditions. Its endurance allows us to glimpse the life of an individual, a community, and a culture. It transforms what might seem mundane, a piece of footwear, into a vessel of history, memory, and connection. Through this shoe, we feel the continuity of human effort and creativity. We sense the miners' presence, their labor, and their daily challenges. We are reminded that history is not only written in monuments, weapons, or ceremonial objects, but also in the simple, functional items that shaped lives and enabled survival. The Hallstatt miner's shoe endures as a quiet witness, bridging past and present. It invites reflection on labor, human ingenuity, adaptation, and the small yet profound ways people have shaped their world. Its story, etched in leather and preserved in salt, connects us to lives long gone, yet vividly present through the objects they left behind. In the shoe's modest form, we find beauty, resilience, and humanity. It is an artifact that whispers across millennia, reminding us that the past is lived in the details, and that every object carries within it the echoes of human experience, care, and endurance. And so, the Hallstatt miner's shoe rests in a museum display, fragile yet enduring, simple yet profound. It holds the story of human labor, innovation, and resilience. Through it, we glimpse the pulse of life in the ancient salt mines, the skill and perseverance of those who wore it, and the timeless human desire to adapt, survive, and leave a mark. It is a small object, yet immense in significance, bridging thousands of years of history and human experience. The Vinci figurine, with etched eyes. Along the fertile banks of the Danube, in what is today Serbia, the ancient Vinci culture flourished nearly 7,000 years ago. Among their remarkable artifacts, one small yet captivating object stands out, the Vinci figurine with etched eyes. It is an object of quiet power, subtle beauty, and enduring mystery. Though it measures only a few inches in height, it carries a weight far greater than its size, a testament to human expression, belief, and the desire to connect across time. At first glance, the figurine seems simple, a small, abstract human form, made of clay, its body minimalistic, yet its eyes etched with deliberate care. Those eyes, deeply incised, slightly exaggerated, draw the observer in, inviting reflection. They do not merely look, they seem to witness, to observe, to communicate something that transcends words. In those etched lines we sense intention, attention, and perhaps even the spiritual life of the people who created it. The Vinci culture was advanced in ways that continue to astonish archaeologists today. Settlements featured organized layouts, specialized crafts, and a deep understanding of agriculture and metallurgy. Within this context, the figurine emerges not simply as an object of art, but as a vessel of meaning. Its form is symbolic, its gaze intentional, and its presence evocative. It connects us to a worldview in which humans sought to express identity, belief, and connection through crafted forms. Imagine the hands that molded this figurine. Wet clay pressed, shaped, and smoothed, curves formed to suggest a body, the small yet deliberate gestures etching the eyes. Perhaps the figurine represented a deity, a spirit, an ancestor, or even an idealized human form. Perhaps it was part of a ritual, carried or placed carefully in a home, a shrine, or a communal space. Every indentation, every line, every subtle curve was chosen with intention, a language of symbol and meaning that we are only beginning to understand. The etched eyes are the heart of the figurine's power. They are simple, yet profoundly expressive. In their symmetry and placement, they suggest perception, awareness, and presence. To gaze upon them is to feel a connection across millennia. It is as if the figurine observes us as we observe it, bridging the gap between the ancient and the modern, the maker and the observer. Those eyes hold memory, culture, and the quiet humanity of a people who lived, labored, and believed long before our time. Consider the environment in which the Vinci people lived. Fertile lands, the meandering Danube, forests and rivers, all provided sustenance and inspiration. In these surroundings, small objects like this figurine would have had significance both practical and symbolic. They could mark domestic spaces, rituals, or spiritual beliefs. They could serve as talismans, teaching tools, or offerings. The figurine's simplicity is deceptive. Its small size belies the depth of thought, care, and culture embedded within it. The process of making such a figurine required skill and attention. Clay had to be prepared, kneaded, and shaped. Tools or fingernails etched the eyes and other features. Perhaps the figurine was fired in a kiln, hardened to last generations. Each step required understanding, patience, and precision. The result is an object that has survived thousands of years, a tangible connection to the human creativity and ritual life of the Vinci people. Holding it in imagination, one can see the figurine resting in the hands of a person long gone. Perhaps it was placed on a shelf, beside a hearth, or within a sacred space. Perhaps it was held during prayers, meditations, or seasonal rituals. The etched eyes met the gaze of the maker and the user, a silent companion, a witness to life, family, and belief. Through this small object we experience intimacy with a culture that might otherwise feel distant and abstract. The Vinci figurine also speaks to universality. Across time and space, humans have created small representations of themselves, of deities, and of the world around them. From the earliest clay forms to the most intricate sculptures, humans have sought to capture essence, identity, and perception in material form. The etched eyes remind us that expression is timeless, and that the desire to communicate, observe, and connect transcends centuries. Imagine the figurine lying buried for millennia, preserved by soil and time, waiting to be uncovered. When archaeologists discovered it, they held not just clay, but a fragment of human consciousness. The figurine becomes a bridge, linking past and present, maker and observer, intent and reflection. Its survival is a reminder that even the smallest, most modest creations can endure, carrying meaning far beyond their material existence. The figurine's presence invites contemplation. What did it witness in life? What did it symbolize to those who held it, prayed with it, or placed it carefully in sacred spaces? Its gaze, though silent, opens a conversation across time, asking us to consider the lives, beliefs, and experiences of the Vinci people. In its simplicity, it evokes complexity, connecting us to ancient human thought, creativity, and spirituality. Through this object, we reflect on human intention and legacy. The figurine reminds us that history is not only preserved in monumental structures or written records, but also in small, carefully crafted items that carry thought, care, and symbolic meaning. Every etched line of the eyes, every curve of the body, every mark of the hand tells a story of observation, intention, and creativity. The Vinci figurine, with etched eyes, endures as a silent witness. It bridges thousands of years, connecting the maker to the observer, life to afterlife, culture to understanding. It invites us to pause, reflect, and feel the presence of human thought and ritual from long ago. Its significance is quiet, yet profound, demonstrating that small objects can carry immense meaning, embodying the continuity of human curiosity, creativity, and expression. And so, the figurine rests, unassuming yet profound, preserved through time. Its etched eyes meet ours across millennia, reminding us that humanity has always sought to observe, express, and connect. Through this small clay form, we glimpse the lives, beliefs, and artistry of the Vinci culture, and in that connection, we recognize the timeless pulse of human imagination, care, and presence. The Egtved Girl Bronze Belt Disk. In the rolling landscapes of Denmark, where meadows stretch and the wind whispers through the trees, the bogs have long held secrets of the Bronze Age. Among these secrets, the story of the Egtved Girl stands out, a young life preserved with astonishing clarity, her existence reaching across more than 3,000 years. Among the artifacts found with her is a small yet extraordinary object, the bronze belt disc, a subtle piece of metal that carries profound meaning, reflecting identity, craftsmanship, and ritual life in her world. At first glance, the belt disc appears modest, a round piece of bronze, polished yet simple, small enough to be overlooked. But within this small object lies an entire universe of human experience. It was both functional and symbolic, securing clothing while signaling status, style, or cultural identity. Its design, though restrained, reflects deliberate artistry and a careful understanding of material, form, and function. The Igdvo girl lived around 1370 BCE, during the Nordic Bronze Age, a period of intricate social structures, vibrant trade networks, and expressive ritual practices. Clothing, jewelry, and personal adornments were more than decoration, they were statements, markers of belonging, and expressions of identity. The bronze belt disc is one such marker, linking the Igdvo girl to her community, her role, and her time. Imagine the hands that crafted it. Bronze, melted and cast, then polished and shaped, formed into a small, precise disc. Each step required skill, patience, and knowledge. The artisan who made it had to understand metal properties, design, and the practical requirements of the wearer. This was not mere ornamentation, it was a product of thoughtful creativity, technical mastery, and social intention. The disc also invites reflection on daily life. Imagine the Igdvo girl fastening it around her waist, adjusting her garments, preparing for work, ceremony, or travel. Each motion, repeated over time, connected her to the object in a rhythm of life that the bronze silently witnessed. The disc was not just a piece of metal, it was a companion to her movements, a small but intimate link to her everyday existence. The context of her burial adds layers of meaning. The Igdvo girl was interred with care, her body and belongings preserved in a peat bog, allowing extraordinary insights into her life. The disc survived as a testament to her personal style and social identity, reflecting a culture that valued both utility and expression. It is a rare glimpse into the intersection of human life, material culture, and symbolic meaning. We can imagine the broader world she inhabited, communities connected through trade, agricultural practices that shaped landscapes, and rituals that marked important transitions in life. The bronze belt disc was part of this intricate network, a functional item, yes, but also a symbol, perhaps signaling maturity, marital status, or social role. It embodies the subtle ways humans communicate identity and belonging through material culture. Holding it in imagination, we feel its weight, the cool smoothness of bronze, the subtle curve fitting naturally against the body. Each glance, each touch, carried meaning. Perhaps it drew attention in gatherings, perhaps it was noticed only by those closest, yet in every case it connected the wearer to her environment, her community, and her cultural norms. The disc also speaks to human ingenuity and technical knowledge. Bronze, a carefully balanced alloy of copper and tin, required precise smelting and casting. The creation of such a small object demanded skill, attention, and foresight. It reflects a society capable of sophisticated craftsmanship, understanding materials, and integrating function with aesthetics. Even in simplicity, the bronze disc embodies complexity, technological, social, and symbolic. Imagine the journey of the disc after her death. Buried in the bog, preserved by the unique chemistry of peat, it survived centuries of decay, isolation, and geological change. Millennia later, archaeologists uncovered it, a small, unassuming piece of metal that carries the pulse of a life lived long ago. In it, we find not just an object, but a story of human intention, labor, and identity preserved against time. The bronze belt disc reminds us that even the smallest objects can hold extraordinary meaning. They are intimate witnesses to human life, reflecting choices, social structures, and personal expression. Through it, we glimpse the rituals, aesthetics, and daily rhythms of the Egtved girl's world. Its survival allows us to connect directly with her presence, imagining her movements, her actions, and the culture she embodied. It also evokes reflection on human continuity. Across millennia, people have used adornments to signify identity, status, and affiliation. From Bronze Age belt discs to modern accessories, the impulse to communicate through material culture remains constant. The Egtved girl's disc is a direct thread in this long, unbroken chain of human creativity and expression. Through this object, we can sense the interplay of utility and symbolism. It was functional, securing garments, yet simultaneously expressive, communicating subtle social messages. It reminds us that even the smallest details in material culture carry significance, that artisans infused objects with both practicality and meaning, and that these choices endure, allowing us to witness human thought and intention across centuries. Imagine for a moment the disc resting against her waist, the peat bog slowly enveloping her, preserving not only her body but the artifacts she carried. The bronze disc becomes a silent storyteller, offering insight into a culture, a life, and a world that no longer exists, yet resonates through the careful preservation of material culture. The Egtved girl bronze belt disc endures as both a functional object and a profound connection to the past. It is small yet remarkable, quiet yet eloquent, simple yet full of meaning. It whispers across millennia, teaching us about human creativity, identity, and the enduring power of crafted objects to carry personal and cultural significance. Through this single, modest disc, we glimpse the life, choices, and society of a young girl who lived thousands of years ago. We feel the continuity of human experience, the desire to create, to express, and to leave traces of ourselves for generations to come. The bronze belt disc is a bridge across time, connecting our curiosity with the lived reality of the Bronze Age, reminding us that even the smallest objects carry the vast weight of human history. And so the disc rests, unassuming yet profound, a tangible link to identity, artistry, and culture. Through it, we honor the life of the Egtved girl, her world, and the remarkable ingenuity of her people. And we are reminded that history is often preserved in the smallest details, quietly carrying human experience across thousands of years. The Clonycavan Man resin hair gel. In the peat bogs of Ireland, where earth and water have conspired to preserve human history with remarkable fidelity, the body of the Clonycavan Man emerged from the layers of time, offering an intimate glimpse into life more than 2,000 years ago. Among the fascinating details of his preservation is something small, personal, and unexpectedly revealing: the resin hair gel he used to style his hair. This unassuming substance opens a window into identity, culture, and the rituals of appearance in the Iron Age. At first glance, it might seem mundane, a sticky, aromatic resin applied to the hair. Yet in that simple action lies profound insight. The Clonycavan Man, through this resin, left behind a trace of daily life, a personal choice that communicates not only style but status, identity, and perhaps even a touch of vanity. This is an artifact of the human self, preserved not through grand structures or monumental art, but through intimate personal practice. The Clonycavan Man lived in Ireland around 200 BCE, during a period of social stratification, trade, and ritual complexity. The peat bogs preserved his body with astonishing clarity, allowing archaeologists to observe not only his skeletal structure, but also the details of grooming and adornment. The resin hair gel, applied to stiffen and style his hair into a tall, elaborate arrangement, signals intention, cultural practice, and aesthetic sensibility. It tells us that appearance was meaningful, that personal presentation carried messages understood by his society. Imagine the hands that applied the resin, smoothing, shaping, and arranging hair in precise lines. Perhaps he prepared for a gathering, a ceremonial event, or simply for daily life among his peers. Each application was deliberate, each strand positioned with care. The resin itself, sourced from trees and mixed with other materials, required knowledge, preparation, and skill. It was not merely cosmetic, it was a crafted product, a technological innovation designed to endure, to perform, and to communicate. The height of the hairstyle, stiffened and elevated by the resin, would have drawn attention. It may have signaled rank, status, or tribal affiliation. Perhaps it was a marker of masculinity, a statement of identity, or a reflection of contemporary fashion. Through this small artifact, we perceive the importance of self-expression and societal perception even in ancient communities. Appearance mattered, and the resin hair gel was a medium through which identity was broadcast. Consider the preparation of the resin itself. Gathered from specific trees, Processed with heat, perhaps mixed with oils or other substances, it became a medium of creativity and personal care. This was a form of craftsmanship, a small but meaningful technology that allowed the Clonycavan Man to shape his presence, to communicate subtly through his appearance, and to assert a sense of control and individuality within his society. Holding this in the mind's eye, one can see him in his home, preparing for the day, hands working carefully, smoothing resin into hair, shaping it high upon his head, achieving both style and symbolism. The process would have required patience, attention, and perhaps even ritual, as personal grooming was often intertwined with cultural practice. In these intimate moments, the man and the artifact were inseparable, the resin an extension of identity, intention, and social communication. The preservation of the resin is extraordinary. Buried in the anaerobic, acidic environment of the bog, it remained intact for over 2 millennia. We can now analyze its chemical composition, understand its origins, and appreciate the level of sophistication in Iron Age personal care. This small substance, once unnoticed, becomes a profound window into the human experience, a tangible connection between past and present, a reminder that even the most private actions are recorded by time under the right conditions. The Clonycavan Man's hair gel also speaks to broader cultural networks. Ingredients may have been sourced through trade or local collection, reflecting knowledge of materials, experimentation, and access to natural resources. The choice to use resin and the manner of its application demonstrates a deliberate interplay of technology, aesthetics, and social signaling. It reminds us that even small artifacts can convey rich cultural, economic, and technological information. Imagine the social perception of such a hairstyle. Perhaps he moved through his village, head held high, the stiffened hair drawing glances and respect. Perhaps it communicated his role, lineage, or readiness for ritual engagement. The resin, as a medium, made this communication possible, turning the act of grooming into a subtle but powerful tool of identity and expression. Beyond status, the resin also reflects sensory experience. Its aroma, texture, and tactile presence would have engaged multiple senses, enhancing the man's interaction with his environment. In this way, even a small object like hair gel becomes a multi-dimensional connector between the individual, the community, and the natural world. It is a reminder that human creativity extends to every aspect of life, including the care of one's own body. The artifact endures as a testament to personal choice and cultural practice. It preserves a private, intimate detail of life that might otherwise have been lost, reminding us that human history is not only recorded in monuments or tools, but also in small, ephemeral objects that reveal personal identity, social norms, and aesthetic sensibilities. Through the resin, we feel the presence of the Clonycavan Man, his intentions, his preparation, his expression of self. We understand that he lived within a culture that valued appearance, communication, and personal presentation, and that he made deliberate choices to shape how he was perceived by others. The resin hair gel becomes a bridge across time, connecting our curiosity to the lived experience of someone who walked the earth more than 2,000 years ago. The Clonycavan Man resin hair gel endures as both object and narrative. It is modest in size, intimate in purpose, yet immense in cultural significance. It invites us to reflect on identity, aesthetics, and the universality of self-expression. It reminds us that even the smallest, most personal objects carry echoes of human thought, intention, and creativity across millennia. And so, the resin rests, preserved in the bog, a silent witness to human identity, culture, and care. Through it, we connect with the Clonycavan Man, his daily rituals, and his society. We are reminded that history is not only monumental, but also intimate, and that even a small smear of resin can carry the weight of human life, presence, and expression across the centuries. The Bernstorff gold foil figures. In the forests and fields of Denmark, long before the rise of modern civilization, humans expressed themselves through delicate artistry, leaving traces that still resonate across millennia. Among these traces are the Bernstorff gold foil figures, fragile, luminous artifacts that speak quietly yet powerfully of ritual, belief, and the human desire to leave a mark upon the world. At first glance, the figures seem almost ephemeral, thin sheets of gold, cut and shaped into human and animal forms, shimmering delicately, their details subtle but deliberate. Their fragility belies their significance. They were not meant to be robust or utilitarian. They were intended to be symbolic, ceremonial, and transformative. Each figure captures the imagination, inviting us to reflect on the intentions of those who created and used them. The Bernstorff gold foil figures date back to the Nordic Bronze Age, a period characterized by complex social structures, vibrant ritual practices, and artistic expression deeply connected to natural and spiritual worlds. The thin gold sheets were carefully crafted, cut into shapes and sometimes engraved with patterns or symbols. Their forms suggest humans and animals, perhaps representing deities, spirits, or archetypes central to Bronze Age cosmology. Imagine the hands that made them. Gold, soft and malleable, was hammered and cut with precision. The artisan pressed and folded, shaped and engraved, creating figures that were delicate, yet meaningful. Each cut carried intent. Each fold held purpose. The figures were small, almost intimate, yet their creation demanded skill, attention, and ritual understanding. They were art, devotion, and message intertwined. The use of gold itself carries significance. Gold is enduring, luminous, and rare, qualities that imbue the figures with symbolic power. Its permanence contrasts with its fragility, a duality that mirrors the human desire to transcend mortality through ritual and expression. The Bernstorff figures were not mere decoration. They were carriers of meaning, vessels for human belief, and conduits between the earthly and the sacred. Consider their function, found in deposits that suggest ritual placement. The figures may have been offerings, tokens of devotion, or symbolic representations in ceremonial contexts. They might have been attached to trees, buried with the dead, or displayed in sacred spaces. Each figure, though small, functioned as a link between the human and the divine, the living and the unseen. Their creation and placement were acts of intention, care, and reflection. Holding them in the mind's eye, one can see artisans carefully shaping each figure, considering form, gesture, and symbolism. Perhaps they were part of a larger ceremonial act, where light would catch the gold, animating the figures with shimmer and movement. Perhaps they were left as offerings to spirits, gods, or ancestors, tiny emissaries of devotion, silently conveying messages across time. The fragility of the gold foil figures makes their survival extraordinary. Thin, delicate, and easily damaged, they endured thanks to careful deposition and the fortuitous conditions of burial. Each surviving figure is a window into a society that valued artistry, ritual, and the symbolic power of objects. Their preservation allows us to witness not only skill, but also the cultural and spiritual world in which they were created. The Bernstorff figures also reveal human universality. Across cultures and epochs, humans have used small, crafted objects to represent the sacred, to communicate belief, and to leave a mark of presence. The figures remind us that creativity and devotion are timeless impulses, and that even the smallest artifacts can convey profound meaning, bridging the gap between the maker and the observer. Imagine the figures resting in their original context, sunlight filtering through trees, the shimmer of gold catching the eye, their forms evoking life, spirit, and myth. Perhaps they were observed by many, perhaps by few, yet each placement was deliberate, each figure a message, a prayer, or a marker of connection. In their quiet luminosity, we feel the presence of those who lived, believed, and expressed themselves so long ago. Through these small figures, we reflect on intention, artistry, and human expression. They demonstrate that even the simplest forms can carry weight, convey identity, and preserve thought across centuries. They invite us to consider not only the technical skill of their creation, but also the beliefs, values, and spiritual sensibilities of the Bronze Age Nordic peoples. The Bernstorff gold foil figures endure as both material and narrative. Their delicate forms connect us to a world that might otherwise feel distant, reminding us that history is preserved not only in monumental works, but also in small, fragile, and intentionally crafted objects. Through them we glimpse the human impulse to create, to express, and to transcend the limitations of time. In observing these figures, we sense the continuity of human experience, creativity, ritual, devotion, and communication. Gold, shaped by hands, placed with intent, preserved by circumstance, becomes a bridge across thousands of years. The figures embody artistry, cultural identity, and spiritual expression, whispering the values and beliefs of a people long gone. And so, the Bernstorff gold foil figures rest in museums and collections today, delicate yet enduring, quiet yet eloquent. They are reminders that even the smallest, most fragile objects can carry immense significance. Through them we connect with human intention, artistry, and devotion across millennia, appreciating the enduring power of creativity, symbolism, and the desire to leave a mark on the world.